Chapter 656. An ancient ship. Sumo was slightly stunned. The ship was purplish-brown in color. It was thousands of feet long and hundreds of feet tall. There were masts and sails on it, but the sails were not moving. The entire ship floated quietly in the galaxy like a small city. At this time, the energy of the entire world star explosion was being absorbed by it. The ancient ship and this small world formed an energy bridge that was hundreds of miles long. The light rippled, and from a distance, it looked like a rainbow supporting the sky. "What ship is that?" Yi Wuhui asked. "I also want to know." Sumo smiled bitterly. Then her figure moved, heading straight for the ancient ship. Sumo's immortal vine was in her hand, surrounding her body. The reincarnation-grade protection caused an azure light to appear around Sumo for hundreds of feet. With the azure light protecting her body, Sumo stepped on the rainbow and moved forward. He walked very slowly. This was because he was constantly observing his surroundings. Fortunately, there was no danger. Sumo boarded the ancient ship without a hitch. Her divine sense spread out. The entire ancient ship was empty, without a single life. Spectre ship? Yi Wuhui also did not sense any life. "Seems like it." Sumo stood on the deck, looking left and right. On the thousands of feet long deck, other than masts, sails, and some other ship equipment, there was nothing else. Sumo lightly patted the side of the ship. Clank, hum. In an instant, a sound that was neither gold nor jade resounded, but the sound was crisp and melodious, extremely pleasing to the ear. Sumo had never seen this kind of material before. It was definitely not something that the Three Realms Galaxy had ever possessed. At the same time, the entire ancient ship emitted a faint fragrance. The fragrance made one feel relaxed and at ease. It was indescribably wonderful. Whoosh! Yi Wuhui's divine sense directly flew out from between Sumo's eyebrows. She bent down to carefully examine the color and patterns of the ship's board, then stood up. "Sumo, if I'm not wrong, this is a lotus wood." "This is lotus wood," Yi Wuhui said. "Lotus?" Sumo had never heard of it. "Yes, lotus wood," Yi Wuhui said. "Legend has it that there is a mystical ancient lotus in the Yizong world. It is shaped like a tree and is thousands of feet tall. It did not bear lotus seeds or lotus pods. After experiencing millions of tribulations, it would die, and after experiencing millions of tribulations again, it would turn into wood. The wood had an inextinguishable spiritual qi and everlasting Taoist charm. Invincible to all things, invincible to all things. This is vast universe's supreme treasure." "Oh." Sumo could not help but frown. Then, the lotus vine in her hand turned into a whip. Pa! Sumo used 20 to 30% of her strength to whip the deck in the distance. Pitter-patter, jingle, hum. The voice that was neither gold nor jade came again. However, the ancient ship did not move in the slightest, nor was it damaged in the slightest. Sumo's lotus vines, on the other hand, were bounced back like an azure dragon. Sumo could not help but be slightly startled, because, although she only used a little bit of strength, that strength was enough to kill an immortal cultivator. This ancient ship was indeed very powerful. "What? You don't believe me?" Yi Wuhui looked at Sumo and said with a smile, "Not to mention your lotus vine, if the legend is true, even the 9 coffins of the 3 realms may not be able to damage this lotus wood ship. Hee. Then, we have picked up a treasure." Sumo smiled and said, "This ship is ownerless. In your dreams." Yi Wuhui said with a smile, "This kind of treasure ship has its own spirituality. I'm afraid that no one can control it. It's already not bad that we can come up here. Perhaps, if it were someone else, they would have been instantly killed by it from 100 miles away. It is not an inanimate object." "Yes." Sumo nodded. "It seems that the star explosion in this world was most likely caused by this ancient ship. It is currently absorbing the energy of this world. Let's take a closer look. This ship is not ordinary," Yi Wuhui said. "Don't be more than 3 feet away from me," Sumo instructed. "Okay." Yi Wuhui smiled. Of course, she was willing, so she very naturally held onto Sumo's arm. In fact, Sumo didn't feel much at all. After all, Yi Wu was only an illusory soul, but she enjoyed this process very much. The two of them moved forward side by side. The 3,000 feet ancient ship could be said to be very powerful. Sumo and Yi Wu searched very carefully. They found that this ancient ship was covered with strange runes. However, whether it was Sumo or Yi Wu, they did not recognize those runes. Who had the ability to build such an ancient ship? A lotuswood ship. The real owner of this ship must be in existence above the venerable realm. Sumo and Yi Wu boarded the ship at the stern. They walked step by step to the bow of the ship, and suddenly found that there was a large hole on the deck. The hole was not formed naturally, but was caused by an external force. The hole was uneven, dog teeth protruded, and wood fragments were shocking. Faintly, there were traces of black light at the edge of the hole. Hiss! When Sumo saw this, she could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. This was because, according to Yi Wu previous attempt, even if he attacked with all his strength, he would not be able to damage this ancient lotuswood ship at all. The lotuswood ship was comparable to the 9 coffins, or even better. Not to mention the current Sumo, even the Dark Lord back then could not break the coffins with his bare hands. Just what kind of power was needed to achieve this? Lotus Knight. Sumo recalled the words of the white-robed Guardian King. Above the venerable realm was the Lotus Knight. It seemed that only the power of a Lotus Knight could damage this ancient ship. Sumo, let's go down and take a look, Yi Wu said cautiously. At this moment, of course, she could also see that this hole was not ordinary. Okay. This time, Sumo waved one hand, and the entire lotus vine shrank to 3 feet in front of her. This way, the range of defense was reduced, but it was more secure. Whoosh! At the same time, Sumo patted her storage bag with one hand. 2 skeletal puppets were summoned, and they directly jumped into the hole on the boat. If the puppets were in trouble, they would naturally report back to Sumo. However, nothing unusual happened, so Sumo flew into the hole with Yi Wu. This ancient ship was like a moving continent. Sumo and Yi Wu slowly descended. The entire ancient ship was also hundreds of feet high. At this moment, it was more like a cave. The surroundings were pitch black, without a trace of light. However, for mighty figures like Sumo and Yi Wu, it was nothing at all. The 2 white skeletons naturally emitted light, and the area within a radius of hundreds of feet was instantly as bright as day. Looking again, their surroundings were still empty, but there were broken pieces of wood under their feet. There were also many scratches on the ground. It was obvious that there had been a great battle here, but because the lotuswood ship was really indestructible, only a few marks were left. At this moment, Sumo went deeper inside, and his body suddenly shook, because not far in front of him, he saw several broken runes that were still faintly glowing with a bit of brilliance. They were like candles in the wind, about to be extinguished at any time. Forbidden map? Sumo's expression changed, and not far from the forbidden map, a ghost mask fell on the ground alone, emitting a faint light. Seeing that mask, Sumo's eyes suddenly narrowed. The Supreme Ghost God Mask. Chapter 657. The Supreme Ghostly Face. At that moment, Sumo could hardly believe her eyes. As soon as he moved, he almost left Yi Wu where he was. Bending down, she picked up the ghostly face on the ground. The ghostly face was ferocious and terrifying, its fangs slightly open and blood dripping. At the same time, endless spiritual power came from the ghostly face. That was the supreme ghostly face. Sumo would never mistake it for someone else. It was the treasure of the 3 realms, an item that once belonged to the ghostly lord. However, Sumo knew that its last owner was Shun Yen. Sumo looked at the broken, forbidden map on the ground again. It was definitely AMU's forbidden map technique, and it should be the remnant of the forbidden time map. AMU had used the forbidden time on this ancient ship. Sumo pondered. The supreme ghostly face? The ancient lotus boat? The ancient lotus boat? Sumo stood there in a daze. At that moment, a storm was set off in her heart. Yi Wuhui looked at Sumo blankly because she did not know what Sumo had discovered. AMU, Shun Yin, the ancient ship. Sumo looked at Yi Wu Dao, then looked around. This is the immeasurable ship. The immeasurable ship? Yi Wuhui was puzzled. The heart of the vast sea, a song, endless Tao, 1,000 meanings. In the vast three realms, who knows if there's a light boat outside White Mountain at the immeasurable ferry? Cultivating longevity, asking the heavenly Tao. Ridiculous. On the wheel of wind, in the lotus dream. Was there really a limit to the tribulations? He was speechless. Do you know where the cause and effect are? Suemo looked at the ghostly face and the incomplete forbidden painting. He couldn't help but murmur the song of the azure sea to himself. The dust has its end, and time flies. Who can claim to be invincible? Now, from the song of the vast sea, he seemed to understand more things. The wheel of wind, the lotus, these had all appeared in the song of the vast sea. Perhaps Songhai knew some secrets, but he hadn't told him everything. AMU and Shun Yin left the three realms on an ancient ship. Sumo let out a long sigh. That should be the ship. Immeasurable ship. Hearing Sumo's words, Yi Wuhui couldn't help but look around. At this moment, she saw a large pillar in the middle of the cabin. The pillar had a diameter of 10 zhang and a height of more than 300 zhang. It was a huge round platform. On the round platform, there was a row of white ancient words. Infinite realms, 10,000 hidden paths. Within the lotus of life and death, where is the path? Every word was 3 meters tall. His strokes were simple and unadorned. Every stroke was heavy and powerful, yet its edge was restrained. Those were the words written seriously by someone who had just learned how to write. However, there was an indescribable charm to them. Sumo, look. Yi Wuhui pointed at the ancient words on the round platform. Infinite realms, 10,000 hidden paths. Within the lotus of life and death, where is the path? Sumo softly read the line of words and couldn't help but frown. Those were not AMU's words, nor were they Shun Yan's words. Perhaps those are the words of the creator of this immeasurable ship. The infinite realms were endless, but where was the path? To be able to create such an immeasurable ship, that person must have been a top powerhouse in vast universe. However, his last question was, where was the path? Who knew how much endless sorrow and vicissitudes were contained in this question? Those were the questions of gods and Buddhas. However, they didn't have an answer in their hearts. Sumo flew up and directly landed on the round platform. Yi Wuhui followed closely beside her. Looking again, the round platform was also covered with runes that Sumo and Yi Wuhui didn't recognize. Standing on the round platform, they looked forward. In front of them, there was a huge screen of stars. The vast universe seemed to appear in front of them. Sumo even saw the broken stars that they had just passed through not long ago. Moreover, the screen of stars was constantly switching, sometimes far away, sometimes close. Sometimes Sumo and Yi Wuhui could see some clues in the world in front of them. Sometimes Sumo and Yi Wuhui didn't know what world or place it was. Perhaps everything that was displayed on the screen of stars had already surpassed the understanding of Sumo and Yi Wuhui. At the same time, there was a small platform that was 7 feet high, protruding from the round platform. There were many runes on it as well. At first glance, it seemed like the control platform of this immeasurable ship. However, there was only a pole on it and no rudder. Sumo looked at other places on this round platform. Apart from this small platform, there was another similar one on the left and right, but there was nothing on it. Looking around, Sumo and Yi Wuhui were sure that this was the control platform of this immeasurable ship. Yi Wuhui lowered her head and paid attention to her feet. Bending down, she picked up a black feather from a gap on the round platform. Sumo, look. Yi Wuhui handed the black feather in his hand to Sumo. It was a shiny black feather, no more than 3 inches long, but had a faint luster. Crow feather. Sumo took the feather and recognized it at first glance. This is a crow's feather. The crow on Holy Father, AMU's shoulder? Yes. Sumo frowned. It seems that a great battle must have taken place here in the past. However, this immeasurable ship is extremely hard, so there aren't many traces left. Or perhaps their final battlefield wasn't on this ship. Otherwise, the supreme ghost god face, Shunyan's top magic treasure, would never have been abandoned here, and the crow's feather wouldn't have fallen so easily. These discoveries are all good. Yi Wuhui nodded, because this may prove that they are still alive. Yes. Sumo nodded. Let's look at other places on this ship and see if we can find anything. Okay. Thus, the two of them continued to search. In the end, they found that this ship had many cabins. These cabins were big and small. They were like cave dwellings. However, there was nothing in the caves. However, there were strange runes in each cave. Moreover, the runes in the cabins were not exactly the same kind of runes. They should be different kinds of runes left by different cultivators. It seemed that this immeasurable ship had more than just AMU and Shunyan. However, for some reason, everyone had disappeared, and there was almost no trace left. In the end, only runes of different colors were left. Half a day later, Sumo and Yi Wuhui returned to the place where they found the supreme ghost god face. Sumo stared at the remnant of the forbidden map left by AMU. Misty, return to my sea of consciousness first, Sumo said. What are you going to do? Yi Wuhui asked. I'm going to try to see if I can repair this remnant, and see what happened, Sumo said. Okay. Yi Wuhui nodded. Then, he moved his soul and returned to Sumo's sea of consciousness. The forbidden time. Sumo looked at the remnant map on the ground and took a deep breath. He believed that in all the realms, only AMU could deduce such a forbidden map. At this time, he only wanted to use his own forbidden map to guide the remnant map and collect some information from the past. Sumo raised her arms and drew in the air. Multicolored lights instantly lit up. In a sense, his forbidden painting had come from AMU. Therefore, when Sumo's forbidden diagram was deduced, countless forbidden diagram lights rose from his feet. Whoosh. Chapter 658. The forbidden map technique was the profound meaning of vast universe. Sumo's forbidden map could only be considered as having a basic understanding of it. It had yet to reach the next level. Therefore, he could not completely repair AMU's forbidden map. However, Sumo's time-space reincarnation still resonated with AMU's forbidden map. In the light of the forbidden map, Sumo felt as if he had instantly passed through many spaces. Everything around him was changing. Starlight, torrents, and the entire world was changing. Indistinctly, he vaguely saw a figure dressed in green, accompanied by a figure dressed in purple. AMU, Shunyan. Sumo was certain that they were AMU and Shunyan. At the same time, a black crow perched on AMU's shoulder. That scene greatly shocked Sumo, because it was not a dream, but a different space. It was the real AMU, Shunyan and Crower. After tens of thousands of years, they seemed to be able to meet again. However, even if Sumo used all his strength, he could not completely reach that space. He could only approach. Holy Father, AMU? Shunyan Crowa? Yi Wuhui's consciousness was also shocked. She really did not dare to believe it. After all, they were legendary existences to her. The figures of AMU and Shunyan were not very clear. Only a color and outline could be seen. Moreover, the image was extremely shaky because the transmission of information was not very smooth. Even so, all of this was enough to excite Sumo and Yi Wuhui. AMU, Shunyan. Sumo instinctively shouted. However, he instantly understood that the other party could not hear him at all. Everything in the forbidden map seemed to be happening on the round platform just now. AMU and Shunyan stood side by side. Everything on the vast screen of stars was completely blurred. However, from the image, AMU and Shunyan seemed to be staring at the screen of stars. Wang Han, where will this immeasurable ship take us? Shunyan's voice sounded. At the moment, I don't know either. AMU smiled and said, White Mountain has always been on the sea. Now that we are in this vast sea of stars, we should be going to White Mountain, right? Caw, caw, caw. A crow cawed on AMU's shoulder. Its voice was very cheerful. It seemed like they had just left the three realms not long ago. By Sean? Sumo could not help but frown slightly. White Mountain, Great Sea, Lotus. He had seen that scene many times, but even now he did not know where it was. The white-robed Guardian King had even said that White Mountain was an illusion. However, it was obvious that Baishan and Ahai would appear on AMU and Shunyan star screen. AMU's forbidden painting was not complete, so the scene was intermittent. Sometimes, both AMU and Shunyan were on the round platform. Other times, only one of them was on the platform, and sometimes neither of them was on the platform. The scene flickered continuously. Several times it was extinguished, and several times it reappeared, but AMU and Shunyan's voices never came out again. The forbidden painting that AMU had left behind was really too little. The information that could be left on the forbidden painting was even less. Suddenly, another scene appeared, and AMU and Shunyan's anxious voices could be heard. Something has happened to the three realms. Shunyan seemed to be pointing at a corner of the star screen. Huh? How? AMU's voice was filled with confusion. The vast universe purifier. Shunyan said, they seem to have made a move on the three realms. From a star screen, Yizang's power is devouring the three realms. It wants to devour the three realms. Jump back, AMU said in a low voice. The three realms must not fall into their hands, and it cannot be purified. I promised all living beings in the three realms that I would give them eternal life. Chi-Chai at this time. The scene on the forbidden painting flickered again. Sumo did not know what happened in between. However, when the scene changed again, it was already the scene of a fight. A ray of heavenly light descended from the sky. Sumo found it hard to say whether it was a Tao technique or the power of vast universe. Or perhaps it was a star that had fallen. In a vast sea of stars, the immeasurable ship was originally jumping between the stars at an extremely fast speed. However, that ray of heavenly light hit the front deck of the immeasurable ship. There was a deafening sound, and spiritual energy filled the sky. At the same time, the immeasurable ship suddenly stopped in the interstellar space. That scene left Sumo dumbfounded. He did not see who made the move at all, nor did he see where that ray of heavenly light came from. However, the immeasurable ship's wooden splinters scattered, and a large hole appeared on the deck. It was the big hole that Sumo and Yi Wuhui saw on the deck previously. That was indeed caused by an external force. The immeasurable ship was vast universe's treasure, but it was actually pierced through in an instant. This was almost unimaginable to Sumo. Lotus Night Wong. Shenyan's voice sounded. That voice was filled with shock. Chi, the scene shook, and many fragments disappeared. When the scene reappeared, it was already a different scene. The immeasurable ship was full of spiritual energy and immortal light. AMU, Shunyan, and Crow were fighting with a cultivator in black. The cultivator in black was fighting 1 against 3, but he still had the upper hand. Kikik. An earth-shattering ghost cry was heard. Shunyan's hair had already turned white in an instant. That was Shunyan's secret technique, but she would never use it unless it was absolutely necessary. Crow's cry was like a mournful bolt of lightning that cut through the night sky. At that moment, its body transformed into endless white light. The sky was filled with black feathers as it fought with all its might. However, the cultivator in black's long hair fluttered, and he sneered. Three realms Lotus Soul. There is no need to resist stubbornly. Although you are already a Lotus Knight, you are still 1 level below me. Today, I will definitely seal all of you. Hee. AMU did not say much, and only sneered. However, he should understand that there was no way to escape today. However, he could not just surrender without a fight. Vaguely, Sumo saw AMU pointing in the void. The forbidden painting technique. From Sumo's point of view, AMU's forbidden space-time technique was an invincible existence. Because once he could control time, what was there to be afraid of? Sure enough, what AMU had unleashed was indeed the forbidden time. That could be considered his most powerful technique. A huge clock appeared under AMU's feet. Shunyan's black hair instantly turned white, and Crow's feathers began to rapidly retract. AMU seemed to be turning back time. However, His technique could not change the Lotus Knight. Lotus technique of space-time? The cultivator in black snorted. Three Realms Lotus Soul. Unfortunately, your technique is not strong enough. This is not the Three Realms. Seal. The scene in the forbidden painting suddenly began to shake. The final scene did not appear in front of Sumo's eyes. However, Sumo could imagine the situation at the time. The cultivator in black must have sealed AMU, Shun Yin, and Crow together. Whoosh! The scene in the forbidden painting reappeared. However, there was no sign of AMU and the others. It was only an extremely empty scene. In the empty galaxy, there was a lonely ancient ship. Remnant Wood, Heiyu, and the supreme ghost god face must have been left on the immeasurable ship. However, a conversation was transmitted at the end. AMU, is your final technique still useful? It must be useful. I reverse part of time. Our remaining power will definitely find him, and then he will gradually awaken. He must have reincarnated. I hope so. That is the last thing we can do for the Three Realms. Under the catalysis of Sumo's forbidden painting, AMU's remnant forbidden painting emitted a final ray of light and instantly disappeared. However, it flashed a scene in the end. It was actually in front of the ancient temple in Peach Blossom Town. An ancient ship modeled with age slowly swept across the sky like a whale passing through the sea. Chapter 659. Peach Blossom Town? Sumo was shocked. Everything that happened that year was AMU's last trick. Did he do it just to find her? All of this was not a simple coincidence. Outside Peach Blossom Town, the sky was bright. At this time, Sumo could see everything clearly, because it was no longer the scene in AMU's forbidden map, but Sumo's forbidden map of time and space. Boom! Thunder rumbled in the sky, and a modeled, immeasurable ancient ship passed through that time and space. The song of the vast sea resounded through heaven and earth, like the sound of Sanskrit. It was waking up Sumo. At that time, Sumo was dressed in a beggar's clothes, holding the broken bamboo pole tightly. He was already unconscious. Everything around him was disappearing. It was as if a strange wind came and swept everything away. Peach Blossom Town seemed to be a special world. It, and everything else, turned into a faint green mist and gradually dissipated. Bang! At this time, Sumo saw with her own eyes that the beggars who begged with her turned into rays of light and disappeared in an instant. Only Lao Xuantu, who was dressed in sloppy clothes, looked at the immeasurable ship with a complicated expression. He stood in front of the dissipating, dilapidated temple, his eyes slightly narrowed, but he did not seem nervous at all. Several lotus flowers appeared in front of and behind him. However, the color of the lotus flowers was something that Sumo had never seen before, because they were all gray lotus flowers. Lysimachia chinensis. They were especially gray. Sumo had never seen or heard of them before. Those Lysimachia chinensis swayed gently. The power brought by the immeasurable ship could not get within 3 feet of Lao Xuantu. All the power was blocked by him. Huh! Lao Xuantu looked at the immeasurable ship, smiled, and let out a long sigh. Immeasurable, it's been a long time. Then, he looked at Sumo, who had passed out in the void. Little Su, I wish you good luck. Old man, let's go. With that, Lao Xuantu no longer looked at the immeasurable ship in the void. Instead, he turned around. It was his usual unkempt appearance. Lao Xuantu shuffled away in a pair of worn-out shoes. Lysimachia chinensis followed him like a shadow. At that moment, it seemed like no power could stop Lao Xuantu's footsteps. He was always free to come and go. That scene made Sumo extremely shocked. In the void, Sumo disappeared in an instant. Following this, the image of the forbidden diagram on the ancient ship dissipated. Everything was gone. Sumo stood alone in the empty cabin. Sumo, who is that old beggar? Yi Wuhui asked in Sumo's sea of consciousness. Just now, Yi Wuhui saw everything clearly. On the immeasurable ship, AMU's battle with the Holy Lotus Venerable surprised her a lot. However, the old beggar in the last scene surprised Yi Wuhui the most. What kind of existence was that? It was simply too transcendent. Before I awakened in the Yizong world, that old beggar begged with me. We called him Lao Xuantu. Sumo smiled bitterly. Then, she paused for a moment and said, "Perhaps it wasn't the Yizong world. I once searched the entire Pure Land, but no one had ever heard of the so-called Peach Blossom Town of Nanjun Country. That Peach Blossom Town might be an illusion. I don't know if the people there are real or not. That Lao Xuantu, Sumo shook her head. It's simply impossible to fathom. Now, when Sumo thought about Lao Xuantu's past, she was also confused and couldn't come to a definite conclusion. However, Sumo had already determined that everything that happened that year was not a simple coincidence. Sure enough, Lao Xuantu was not an ordinary person. Lysimachia chinensis. I've never heard of that kind of lotus, but judging from Lao Xuantu's attitude towards the immeasurable ship, he seems to be very familiar with it. Yi Wu Hui said again. Yes. Sumo let out a long sigh. This is also the first time I've seen a gray lotus. Those lotus flowers give off an indescribably strange feeling. Yes. Yi Wu Hui responded. Sumo, what should we do now? AMU and Shunyan are both sealed. Sumo shook her head. With my current ability, I can't even compare to Shunyan at that time, let alone AMU. Therefore, it's better for us to leave this immeasurable ship as soon as possible. As for AMU, we can only talk about it in the future, not now. The Holy Lotus Night should not be an ordinary Lotus Night. Yi Wu Hui's voice was slightly heavy. The ancestral master mentioned something about it in the past. However, he only said that it would take him tens of thousands of years to reach the Lotus Realm. Lotus Night? The Holy Lotus Night? Sumo smiled bitterly, but he didn't have a clear idea. After all, he hadn't even recovered to the Venerable Realm. Immediately, Sumo's mind moved, and he had already returned to the deck of the immeasurable ship. This immeasurable ship had an extremely magical power. This was because Sumo felt that his spells and divine sense were greatly restricted on this ship. At this moment, he stood on the deck and could no longer see the rainbow bridge from before. The world that had exploded like fireworks had long since disappeared. The void was dark and gloomy like a black hole. Where are we? There was a star map of the Dead Souls galaxy in Sumo's mind. However, he couldn't find the interstellar coordinates at this time, and he didn't know where he was. This immeasurable ship seems to have entered a space-time black hole. Yi Wu Hui said the power of that small world just now was all swallowed by it. The immeasurable ship should have made a space jump on its own, and now we are in a black hole. Whoosh! As soon as Yi Wu Hui's voice fell, the space in front of them suddenly became clear. The immeasurable ship seemed to have really passed through a space-time black hole. Sumo could already see the distant starlight. At that moment, the star map in Sumo's mind flashed slightly. At this time, Yi Wu Hui also said, Sumo, that star is one of the Dustnet 3 stars. He didn't expect that in less than 4 hours on this immeasurable ship, they had almost crossed the entire Dead Souls galaxy. It should be noted that the Dead Souls galaxy was several times larger than the Pure Land galaxy. The Dustnet 3 stars were in front of them. Sumo couldn't help but take a deep breath. I'm almost there, Sumo said silently in his heart. Then, with a thought, Sumo left the immeasurable ship. In the void, Sumo stopped and hesitated for a moment. Finally, with a thought, he directly took out the Cosmos bag. Whoosh! The Cosmos bag expanded in the wind and floated in the interstellar space. In an instant, its mouth opened, and a vortex directly appeared in front of the bag. That was a normal phenomenon caused by an extremely strong suction force. However, at this time, its mouth was facing the immeasurable ship. Sumo's idea was very simple. He wanted to see if he could collect this immeasurable ship. Whoosh! The Cosmos bag kept shaking in the void, as if it had used up all its strength. However, the immeasurable ship didn't move at all. It could be said that the Cosmos bag didn't have any effect on the immeasurable ship. It couldn't be collected. Although this result was within Sumo's expectations, he still felt quite emotional in his heart. After all, this was the first time that the Cosmos bag had failed in the face of something like a magic treasure. It had to be known that the 3 realms magic ship which was comparable to the 9 coffins, could be put into the cosmos bag. The cosmos bag could contain a world, but it couldn't contain the immeasurable ship. Haha, no wonder it's called the immeasurable ship. Sumo laughed at himself. It's really a divine object of vast universe. I was a bit delusional. At this moment, the immeasurable ship suddenly emitted a brilliance. Then, it suddenly disappeared. At the same time, Sumo couldn't help but frown slightly. This was because in the distant interstellar space, from the direction of the dust net 3 stars, several rays of brilliance were heading straight for him. Chapter 660. Several beams of light approached from afar. Sumo narrowed his eyes. Although the beams of light were still tens of thousands of miles away from him, he could already see that they were 7 interstellar flying ships. Thus, Sumo had an idea. His appearance and clothes instantly changed. After all, his white clothes and peerless appearance were too eye-catching. There was probably no other male cultivator with such an appearance in all the realms. It was better to be cautious since he had just entered the Dead Souls star field. His white clothes turned into a black robe, and his appearance directly changed to that of Sumo. Sumo's realm was directly suppressed to the first stage of the one lifetime immortal realm. That was a realm that was neither high nor low. If it was not a reincarnation realm expert with a higher realm than Sumo, he would not be able to see through his realm, and those with a lower realm than him would be even more respectful. At this time, the 7 interstellar warships were getting closer and closer. Among them, the leading warship was the largest. It was nearly 100 feet long and 30 feet wide. It was completely black and emitted a faint black light. The body of the warship was full of vermilion runes. Those were all hidden runes, and Sumo had seen many of them. On the bow of the warship, there was a monster that looked like a flying tiger, a dragon, but not a dragon. However, it was not a real monster, but a warship statue. Next to the sculpture of the monster, there was a large flag. The big flag was vermilion in color, with 2 white words Hong Chun written on it. It fluttered in the wind, and the flag fluttered. The other warships looked almost the same, except that their hulls were slightly smaller. Seeing the 2 words Hong Chun, Sumo could not help but narrow his eyes slightly. Hong Chun sect. At this time, Yiwu Hui's voice sounded. I heard that it is one of the very few sects in the Dead Soul star field. It seems to be very old. Yes. Sumo nodded gently. As they spoke, the 7 warships were already in front of them. Their speed suddenly slowed down. Then, they instantly dispersed. However, it seemed like they didn't want to surround Sumo, but the area where the immeasurable ship had disappeared. Sumo stood in the void and did not move. At this time, cultivators appeared on every airship and battleship. Almost all of them were dressed in black. However, there was a red-robed male cultivator standing next to the ancient beast that was leading the flying boat. Their clothes were very ancient. They looked more like ancient monks. Yi Wuhui laughed in Sumo's soul consciousness ocean. It seems that the Dead Soul Star region is very isolated, and they seem to be developing very slowly. However, they didn't seem to be weak. That red-robe cultivator is a perfected sea annihilation cultivator, right? That's right. He can break through at any time. Sumo was conversing with Yi Wuhui in her sea of consciousness. He is already a cultivator with half a foot in the one lifetime immortal realm. At first, the cultivators who suddenly appeared did not pay much attention to Sumo. The 7 warships simultaneously released several black lights. Those black lights went straight to the place where the immeasurable ship had disappeared. Countless black lights intertwined with each other and instantly formed a net. It was a large net with a radius of dozens of miles. Those cultivators seemed to be salvaging something in the interstellar space. Sumo, are they going to salvage the immeasurable ship? Yi Wuhui couldn't help but ask. Huh. Sumo shook her head in her heart. It seems that they want to. However, that's impossible. Even my cosmos sac can't contain the immeasurable ship. How can they do it? However, they seem to be like interstellar hunters. In the past, the Bai family in the 3 realms heaven continent had their own fleet. They hunted for all kinds of mineral resources and treasures in the interstellar space of the Heaven Continent. It is said that they had a very good harvest. I heard that the Bai family of the Heaven Continent is as famous as the Qing family, the Mu family, and the Gui family. I wonder where these eternal realm cultivators have been reincarnated to? Yi Wu Hui said, the Bai family may still have reincarnators. The Gui family's reincarnation cycle had been completely severed by Mu back then. It is impossible for such an evil family to be reincarnated, Sumo said. However, Shang Xie, Shun Yin, and the others are all members of the Gui family. The conversation between the two people couldn't be heard by others. At this time, the black net gradually closed, but there was nothing in the net. The cultivator in red at the bow of the ship shook his head, his expression very disappointed. When he looked again, he waved one hand. All the ships retracted their black lights. This time, they should have found nothing. At the same time, the 7 black ships returned to their previous formation. At this time, the cultivator in red turned his gaze to Sumo. Immortal for a lifetime, the cultivator in red couldn't help but nod slightly. Then his figure moved, and he was already in front of Sumo. I am a left patrol envoy of the Red Dust sect, Zheningbu. Greetings, fellow Taoist. The cultivator in red cupped his fist to Sumo, his tone very polite. May I know how to address you? Where are you from? My surname is Murong, and my name is Huang. Sumo smiled. I am a rogue cultivator, and I travel around. So it's fellow Taoist Murong. Nice to meet you. Zheningbu smiled. I want to ask fellow Taoist Murong about something. Did you guys see anything strange just now? Strange. When Sumo heard this, she couldn't help but smile. To be honest, I really did see something strange just now. Oh, Zheningbu's eyes lit up. Just now I saw an ancient ship. Sumo pointed to the area where Zhan Ingbu and the others were fishing. Really? Zheningbu was shocked. What? Fellow Taoist doesn't believe me? Sumo smiled. Oh no. Zhan Ingbu hurriedly denied, slightly embarrassed. Fellow Taoist Murong, please don't blame us. It's just that we've been chasing it for thousands of years, but we've never seen its true appearance. I didn't expect fellow Taoist Murong to see it. What do you mean? Sumo couldn't help but be stunned. The cultivators of the Red Dust sect were chasing the immeasurable ship? Wasn't that a fool's dream? AI. Zhan Ingbu shook his head and sighed. This isn't a good place to talk. If fellow Taoist Murong doesn't mind, please follow me on the ship. Sumo purposely hesitated. Fellow Taoist Murong, don't hesitate. The dead spirit world is vast and boundless. If fellow Taoist Murong casually roams around, who knows when you'll meet a star or a cultivator? Why don't you follow me on the ship and tour our dust-gathering mortal world? Dust-gathering mortal world? Sumo's heart stirred. Then I'll do as you say. Sumo cupped her fists and smiled. Sorry for bothering you. Zheningbu laughed. Then, he led the way and directly invited Sumo onto his battleship. Sumo had her own demonic boat and had seen the immeasurable ship before. Thus, ordinary flying ships and battleships couldn't catch Sumo's attention. Moreover, the Red Dust sect's flying ship didn't have anything special about it. Inside the cabin, Zheningbu accompanied Sumo to a seat and then ordered someone to serve tea. Fellow Taoist Murong, can you tell me about the modeled ancient ship you saw just now? Zheningbu asked. Oh, Sumo smiled. To be honest, fellow Taoist Zhen, it was actually that ancient ship that brought me to the Dead Spirit Star region. I've been on that ship before. What? Zheningbu's expression suddenly changed. Chapter 661. Sumo's words stunned Zheningbu. Taoist, Brother Murong, you boarded that ancient ship? Then did you come here on the ancient ship? Is that your ship? Zheningbu's eyes showed that he couldn't believe it, but he was also a little excited. Huh? Sumo shook his head and smiled. I did board that ancient ship. It can be said that I rode that ancient ship to come here. But it's not my ship. Oh. Zheningbu seemed to feel that he had lost his composure and personally poured a cup of tea for Sumo. I was traveling through the worlds and accidentally entered the Dead Souls star field. Sumo obviously couldn't tell the truth. I happened to see that ancient ship. It was devouring the energy of small world. I was curious and went up to take a look, but I didn't expect that ancient ship to be so powerful. I couldn't break free and was sucked onto the ship. Sumo smiled bitterly. "What was on the ship?" Zheningbu asked. "It was empty." Sumo shook her head. "That was a ghost ship. There were traces of fighting on the ship, but there wasn't a single cultivator." Zheningbu frowned and didn't reply. "But there should have been cultivators on the ship. There were runes on the ship that I've never seen before. The many small cabins are like immortal caves, and each immortal cave has different runes. There might have been cultivators from different worlds on the ship, but there was a line of words on the ship." "What words?" "Infinite worlds, one way hidden. In the lotus of life and death, where is the path?" Sumo said. Hearing this, Zheningbu's eyes moved slightly, but he didn't say anything. Sumo thought, "It seems like this left patrol of the Red Dust sect has heard of something." Thus, Su Immo continued. "I stayed in the ship for 4 hours, and when I exited the cabin, I discovered that this was no longer the small world that I was in before. Then, I was thrown out of the ancient ship by an unknown force. I saw it disappear with my own eyes, and a moment later, fellow Taoist Zhen and the others arrived. That's what happened." Sumo's words were half true and half false. He didn't completely lie to Zhen Yingxian, but he couldn't tell him about his identity and AMU. "Fellow Taoist Zhen, I'd like to ask, where exactly is this Dead Soul Galaxy?" Zhen Yingbu sighed heavily and answered Sumo's question first. "This is the edge of the Dead Soul starfield. Our Red Dust sect is located on the 7 northernmost stars of the Dead Soul starfield." The 7 northernmost stars? Sumo could not help but ask. This was because there were only 3 stars on his star atlas. However, it was also possible that the other 4 stars were not very important and were just not marked on the star atlas. Zheningbu nodded. He obviously didn't know what Sumo was thinking. The Dust Luo 7 stars is known as the border of the Dust Luo world. Further north is the Great Interstellar Barrier, and only Reincarnation Realm cultivators can cross it. Dust Luo 7 stars. Sumo had another question in his heart, but he didn't ask it immediately. "Fellow Taoist Zhen, have you been looking for that ancient ship?" Sumo said. "Sigh." Zheningbu sighed again and nodded. "That's right. However, we weren't sure if it was a ship before we met you." "Oh." Sumo was stunned. Although the Dead Soul starfield is vast, it's empty. It's vast, and the environment is harsh. Relatively speaking, there aren't many small worlds. The entire Dead Soul starfield is like an old and dying patient. It's dying bit by bit. The Red Dust sect has been around for millions of years, and we almost lost our heritage several times. Fortunately, our sect master is talented and bold, and he managed to unify 4 of the Dust Luo 7 stars. 100,000 years ago, we finally discovered a secret, Zheningbu said. "What secret?" Sumo was curious. "There seems to be a monster that is constantly devouring the small worlds of the Dead Soul starfield," Zheningbu said in a low voice. "That's why the Dead Soul starfield is declining day by day." "That ancient ship?" Sumo said. "That's right." Zheningbu nodded. "In the past, every 3 to 4,000 years, a small world would disappear inexplicably in the Dead Soul starfield. In the beginning, we thought it was some interstellar monster or spirit beast. However, we later discovered that it seemed to be a ship. However, we weren't sure until fellow Taoist Morong's words completely confirmed our guess. Moreover, there's an ancient legend in the Dead Soul starfield." Zheningbu's expression was very ugly. He picked up the teacup in front of him and invited Sumo. "What legend?" Sumo took a sip of the tea. The tea was rich with immortal qi, refreshing the mind. "According to the legend, there's an ancient ship in the vast universe called Immeasurable. It floats in the vast universe, searching for fated people and bringing them to the fertile land of bliss," Zhen Yingbu said. "The ancient ship's handwriting that you mentioned just now must be true. However, no one knows where the fertile land of bliss is." "Oh." Sumo's heart shook, but she laughed at herself. "It seems like I'm not fated. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been thrown off the ship." "Huh." Zheningbu nodded. I hope fellow Taoist Murong won't blame me for saying something. Fellow Taoist Jean, you don't have to be so polite. Just say it. Sumo smiled. Fellow Taoist, although you've entered the one-lifetime immortal realm, I'm afraid you're still not qualified to board that ship. This time, you're already very lucky to have boarded the ship and disembarked safely, Zhan Yingbu said. You should know that the ancient ship can devour small worlds. Any cultivator below the samsara realm would probably be crushed by it. Sumo's expression changed, as if she was afraid. Fellow Taoist Zhan, you're right. Sumo took a sip of tea to calm herself. But since you know that the ancient ship is so dangerous, why did you take the risk to salvage it? Sumo was confused. Huh? Zhan Yingbu smiled bitterly. Legend has it that the immeasurable ancient ship roams the universe, but needs a large amount of energy. The Dead Soul Star Field is one of its energy sources. Now, there are only a few hundred small worlds left in the entire Dead Soul Star Field. One day, the dust Civ 7 stars will be devoured by it. Previously, we hoped that the ancient ship had an owner and begged the other party to leave a few small worlds in the Dead Soul Star Field. This time, we didn't really come to capture it. Just now, we sensed a strange aura, so we immediately rushed over. We released the black net to see if it left any useful clues. But according to what fellow Taoist said just now, it's a specter ship. Zhan Yingbu sighed. If that's the case, it's only a matter of time before the dust Civ 7 stars are devoured. However, we should be safe for the next few thousand years. Maybe we really need to migrate as a whole. I saw it with my own eyes. There's no one on that ship. Sumo also sighed. Sumo once again felt that she couldn't see and touch the world clearly. Everything was too mysterious and complicated. Report. Lord Patrol. A voice came from outside the door. The Yuchi Sect's battleship was discovered 3,000 miles away. Yuchi Sect? Zhan Yingbu smiled coldly, but Sumo was shocked again. Yuchi. He was too familiar with this name. Chapter 662. Yuchi Sect. Zhan Yingbu smiled coldly and stood up. Brother Morong, please sit down. I'll go out and take a look. Please go ahead, Su Limo said with a smile. Zhan Yingbu walked out of the cabin and went to the deck. At this time, there were 7 dark red battleships lined up in a fan shape a few miles away. Those battleships were almost the same size as Hong Chen's battleships. However, there was a strange monster floating on the bow of each battleship. The monster's aura was far more imposing than the one on Hong Chen's ship. It had black feathers for eyes, a green face, and fangs. The monster was 10 feet tall and had ape-like arms. Its legs were like chicken claws and were as thick as a human's leg. Each claw was like an iron hook. A pair of green-black wings retracted behind it. The monster looked like a human, but not a human, like a ghost, but not a ghost, like a beast, but not a beast, like a bird, but not a bird. Zhan Yingbu looked at everything calmly, because he had seen the so-called guardian demon beast of Yuchi Sect long ago. According to legend, it was left behind by the founding ancestor of Yuchi Sect. However, that was only an imaginary totem. No one had seen the real Yuchi beast. However, Su Mo, who was in the cabin, was shaken to the core. Although he didn't go on the deck, nothing outside could escape his eyes. Yuchi Divine Beast? Sumo raised her eyebrows and murmured to herself. The monster on the bow is called Yuchi? Yi Wu Hui said. Yes. Sumo nodded. It's a divine beast of the ancient 3 realms. A real Yuchi divine beast is comparable to a venerable. Back then, it came from the 3 realms and followed the red flower demon. It almost completely possessed AMU. In the end, it was destroyed by the venerable level cultivators of the 3 realms and Li Shui. Could it be that it has also reincarnated? The demonic ship was on Sumo. The devil's flower was used by Sumo. Therefore, it was not impossible for the Yuchi divine beast to reappear. At this time, many cultivators appeared on the Yuchi Sect's battleship. Most of them were dressed in black or white robes. On the flagship, the leading cultivator was also a perfected sea annihilation realm. The cultivator wore a robe that was half black and half white. These clothes are interesting, Sumo thought to herself. because all those years ago, winged divine beasts could be divided into yin and yang winged beasts. Looks like no matter what sort of sect this Yuchi sect is, it's probably related to the three dimensions. If in a long time, Patrol Envoy Jun, the leading cultivator on the Yuchi sect's flagship, cupped his fists towards Zhan Ningbu. Hee hee. Protector Ning, how have you been? Zhan Ningbu cupped his fists in return, but his tone was not very friendly. The corners of Sumo's mouth curled up as she listened. It seemed like the relationship between the Red Dust sect and the Yuchi sect was a little strange. Sumo didn't know the specifics of the mission, but from the conversation between the two of them, it seemed that they were of equal status. The position of a protector in a sect wasn't too low. Presumably, the patrol envoy was an important figure in the Red Dust sect. Patrol Envoy Jun, I heard that there was an unusual movement in the astral world, so your sect went ahead. Did you find anything? Ningbyuk looked at Zheningbu and smiled faintly. Nothing, Zheningbu said simply. In fact, what Zheningbu said was not a lie. If they didn't take Sumo into consideration, they did find nothing. Oh, Ningbyuk's eyes narrowed slightly. Patrol Envoy Jun went personally and used 7 red dust warships, but still found nothing. What? Zhan Ingbu sneered. Protector Ning, you don't believe it? The Dead Soul Star area is vast and barren. Does Protector Ning get something every time he goes on a star voyage? Hee hee. Ningbyuk shook his head. Not necessarily. However, I heard that there seems to be a new guest on your ship this time. Huh? Zheningbu raised his eyebrows slightly. In an instant, the pressure of the peak of the extermination sea realm suddenly spread out. The cultivators around him all changed their expressions slightly. At this time, it had been less than 2 hours since Sumo boarded the ship, but the news had reached the ears of the Featherwing sect. Obviously, someone on these 7 warships had sent a message to the Featherwing sect. Protector Ning, you really have good ears. Zhan Ningbu suppressed his anger and put on a fake smile. Same to you. Ningbyuk sneered. Isn't your Red Dust sect always aware of the slightest movement of my Featherwing sect? Hee hee. Zhan Ningbu sneered back. It seemed that Ningbyuk's words were not false. These 2 sects should be from the so-called mortal world, Yiwu Hui said. Just now, Zhan Ningbu said that their Red Dust sect unified 4 stars. So the remaining 3 stars are most likely the sphere of influence of the Featherwing sect, Sumo said. From the attitude of the 2 people, the 2 sects are probably equally powerful. Otherwise, they wouldn't be confronting each other here. Fellow Taoism Jun, let's not beat around the bush. At this moment, Ningbyuk's tone was slightly calmer. Our Featherwing also wants to know the authenticity of the legend of the ancient ship. After all, this is related to the survival of the entire mortal world and Featherwing sect. If you have any new news, you might as well tell us. It's good for you. Mortal world and Featherwing sect? Sumo couldn't help but laugh. It seemed that these 2 sects had different names for the so-called mortal world and Featherwing. Although they were both named mortal world, one was called the mortal world and the other was called the Featherwing sect. That was really giving way to each other. These 2 sects are interesting, Yiwu Hui also said with a smile. Protector Ning, you're wrong. Zhan Ingbu sneered and shook his head. Although our 2 sects belong to the mortal world, we each occupy a small star world. Whether the legend of the ancient ship is true or false, we have nothing to do with each other. If the catastrophe comes, the 2 sects will rely on their own abilities. Our Red Dust sect doesn't need the help of the Featherwing. If the Featherwing is in trouble, our Red Dust sect will also stand aside and watch. Oh, huh. Although Ningbyuk was laughing, his eyes slightly narrowed. Because of the delay of the sect's internal affairs, their Featherwing was a step late. He thought that the Red Dust sect would give him face after a good discussion, but he didn't expect Zheningbu to directly refuse. This made Ningbyuk more convinced that the people on the Red Dust sect ship must be important. The Red Dust sect must have discovered some secret. Patrolman Jun. Ningbyuk's tone was cold. This is outside the mortal world 7 stars, and our 2 sects have an agreement before. Outside the 7 stars, life and death are predestined. Oh, Zhang Bu's face suddenly darkened. Protector Ning, if you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten. This is indeed a public space, and we can practice it. Let's see whether the formation of our red dust sect is better, or the battleship of your featherwing is better. Protector Ning looked around, and then the corner of his mouth curved. Soldiers against soldiers, generals against generals. Patrolman Jin, if you're not afraid, why don't you and I have a duel? In this way, life and death are predestined, and the foundation of the two sects will not be hurt. Patrolman Jin, what do you think? Huh? Hearing this, Zhang Bu couldn't help but laugh. Just what I want. If you win and the guest agrees, I will ask him to come out and introduce you. At the same time, tell him what the Red Dust sect knows. But if I win, you have to leave your flagship and leave quickly. Huh? Ning Byuk's eyes shrank. It's a deal. As soon as he finished speaking, the two masters flew out of their respective flagship and went straight to the void. In the cabin, Sumo couldn't help but smile faintly. Chapter 663. In Sumo's eyes, the battle between Zhang Bu and Ning Byuk was nothing. However, the battle between Zhang Bu and Ning Byuk attracted Sumo's attention. Whooshing between the battleships of the two sects, the two of them exchanged more than 10 moves in an instant. In the interstellar space, rays of light crisscrossed and spiritual energy surged. They were all half a step into the undying realm, cultivators of the same level. Therefore, it was difficult to determine the winner in a short period of time. Whether it was the cultivators of the Red Dust sect or the Featherchi sect, all of them were watching the battle intently. The bet between the two parties was not too big, but it was not too small either. Most importantly, they represented their respective sections. In the Dust Sif 7 stars, the Red Dust sect and the Featherchi sect had been fighting for 1,000,000 years. The grudges between them had long since become indescribable. Therefore, when facing each other, no one would easily admit defeat. Leaving life and death to fate was enough to explain everything. The Red Dust sect had a total of 4 great patrollers. In the Red Dust sect, the position of the patrolling envoy was only below the sect master and the 2 town elders. The Yuchi sect had a total of 3 guardians. Their positions in the sect were only below the sect master and the 2 left and right emissaries. Therefore, no matter in terms of cultivation or status in the sect, it was a real showdown between Zhang Bu and Ning Byuk. Kaboom, there was another loud noise, and then the two of them suddenly separated. Zhang Bu sneered, and Ning Byuk narrowed his eyes. It seemed that neither of them was satisfied with the current situation. They both seemed to think that they should take each other down. Patrol Guardian, Protector Ning. The two looked at each other. Life and death are up to fate. The two of them actually said these words at the same time. The cultivators from both sides understood that they were about to unleash their strongest techniques. Then, Zhang Bu and Ning Byuk's momentum began to rise. Zhang Bu's body began to emit a faint red light, while Ning Byuk's body was surrounded by black and white light. At this moment, Sumo, who was watching the battle, could not help but frown. Zhang Bu formed seals in front of his chest, and the red glow on his body started to change color. The color of the red light instantly deepened, from red to purple, and then from purple to black. His red robe instantly turned into a black robe. His entire aura was completely different. Sumo's brows furrowed even tighter. And Ning Byuk's technique was also very special. Black and white light wrapped around his body, crisscrossing. However, their colors were also changing. Black and white blended together, gradually giving birth to a trace of blood. Following that, the trace of blood suddenly spread out and actually became a bloody light that filled the sky. Within the blood-red light, the faint shadow of an evil beast could be seen. Black feathers for eyes, green face, fangs. His arms were like those of an ape, but his feet were like those of a chicken. His greenish-black wings were unfurled. That was the image of you, Chi-Chi-Chi, Shishi, Shishi in the void. Lightning flashed, and spiritual energy surged. Both sides were accumulating power. The art of the 3 realms. Sumo's eyes locked tightly as she muttered to herself. Technique of the three realms? Yuuhui was shocked and asked hurriedly, could it be that both of them are reincarnators of the three realms? I'm not sure. Sumo shook her head. I can't think of anyone above the eternal realm who is similar to them in the three realms. Moreover, I can't feel any aura of the three realms from them. You should know that I had a special feeling when I drank the dragon saliva. They shouldn't be reincarnators of the three realms. Sumo thought for a moment and said. Then, Yi Wuhui paused for a moment. Someone must have taught them the art of the three realms. They are the disciples and disciples of the reincarnators of the three realms. Yes, Sumo nodded. There must be reincarnators of the three realms behind the Red Dust sect and Yuchi sect. While they were talking, Zheningbu and Ningbyuk had already cast their respective techniques. Black light filled the sky, and blood chi flew. Two brilliances collided in the void. The warships of both sides had retreated and put up defensive techniques at the same time. The Battle of the Sea Destruction Realm was already a first-class battle for the 7 stars of Chenluo. The power of the battle couldn't be underestimated. With a loud bang, the red and black light exploded. But this time, neither of the two cultivators chose to retreat. Instead, they passed through the light and pounced on each other. At this time, there was a long black sword in Zheningbu's hand and a long purple whip in Ningbyuk's hand. As soon as these two weapons appeared, Sumo couldn't help but take a deep breath, because they looked like replicas of the divine weapons of the three realms. Swish! The long sword pierced through the air, with a tail that was dozens of feet long, and went straight for Ningbyuk. The purple whip was like a dragon, rolling up starlight and sweeping toward Zheningbu. In a battle of this level, unless one side was completely defeated, there was no such thing as close combat. Boom! When the two forces were a few miles apart, they completely collided and exploded. Buzz! Buzz! Zheningbu snorted coldly. The sword in his hand had already left his hand and flew directly to Ningbyuk. At the same time, he made a seal with both hands again. In front of him, a black dermic seal had appeared. In the seal, there was a simple character desolation, emitting an ancient aura surrounded by many talismans. That seal, rising against the wind, went straight to Ningbyuk. Desolation Demon Seal. Sumo couldn't help but exclaim, because what Zheningbu used was a pure desolation spell. Even in the three realms, except for the desolation, absolutely no one could use such a spell. Sumo's heart suddenly skipped a beat. Who taught him the desolation spell? At this time, Ningbyuk didn't throw out the purple whip. He turned his wrist, and the purple whip made a turn in the void, like a snake turning around, and directly wrapped around Zheningbu's black sword. However, Ningbyuk also used another kind of spell. He made a seal with one hand. The spell was complicated, but he made it extremely fast. Between his palms, there seemed to be a lotus. Demon flower, appear! Ningbyuk shouted. Then, he gently pinched with 3 fingers of one hand. Instantly, a red flower appeared on his fingertip. The red flower was bright and glistening, as if it was dyed with blood. Demon flower? This time, it was Yi Wuhui who exclaimed, because what appeared on Ningbyuk's fingertip was a blood-colored rose. Blood-colored rose, the demon flower. This scene shocked Sumo and Yi Wuhui. At this moment, they were in a trance. It didn't seem to be a duel between 2 practitioners of Yizong, but a battle between practitioners of the 3 realms. The purple whip and the black sword collided with a loud bang. The purple whip was bounced off, and the black sword was knocked away. However, the most powerful one was yet to come. The black seal fell from the sky. The seal of desolation was like a cage. The red flower rose to the sky. The demon flower suddenly bloomed. At that moment, all the practitioners watching the battle looked serious, because at that moment, victory or defeat, or even life and death would be decided. Rumble. Zheningbu and Ningbyuk didn't hold back. It was a fight to the death. The sky thunder exploded, and there was red and black light. Everything was like a star exploding. At the same time, Zheningbu and Ningbyuk were both sent flying. Both of them spat out blood, and turned into a bloody rainbow. Patrol! Guard! Dozens of figures flew up from the warships of both sides. They roared loudly, ready to engage in a melee. At this moment, a black shadow fell directly in the middle of everyone. In an instant, everyone was frozen in the void. Chapter 664. Sumo made a move, because he didn't want to see these two sects that might be related to the three realms kill each other. As soon as he appeared, everything became simple. The pressure of the one-lifetime immortal sect was enough to suppress all the cultivators present. The cultivators of the Red Dust sect and the Feather Puppet sect were all frozen in the void. Their eyes were filled with confusion and fear. At this moment, if Sumo wanted to kill them, it would be as easy as turning his hand. Taoist Brother Morong. Zhoningbu didn't expect that Sumo would make a move. Blood dripped from the corner of his mouth, and he was panting heavily, his face pale. For a moment, Zhoningbu also looked at Sumo blankly. Ningbyuk also had the same expression, but there was more fear in his eyes. One lifetime immortal realm. Although it seemed that Sumo was only one minor realm higher than them, this small realm was an absolute gap. They might not be able to cross this gap in their lifetime. However, Ningbyuk already understood that this black-robe cultivator must be the person who boarded the Red Dust sect's warship. And if this black-robe cultivator turned to the Red Dust sect, none of them would survive today. At this moment, Ningbyuk couldn't help but curse himself for being careless. If he had known this situation, he would have invited the two great emissaries of the sect, because they were all one lifetime immortal realm cultivators. In the Dead Soul Star field, the world is withering, and there are not many cultivators. Sumo looked around and couldn't help but sigh. The Red Dust sect and the Feather Puppet sect are both in the Dust Civ 7 stars, and are like close neighbors. Since you are worried that one day you will be swallowed by the immeasurable ship, why kill each other and exhaust each other? I saw the immeasurable ship swallow a small world with my own eyes, and I boarded it. If it really appears in the Dust Civ 7 stars, I'm afraid none of you will survive. A small star world is nothing but food in front of it. Zhoningbu listened to Sumo's words and fell silent with shame, because Sumo had already told him some things. He knew that Sumo's words were not alarmist. Taoist brother, you boarded the immeasurable ship? Is that really the immeasurable ship? Ningbyuk asked in shock. That's right, it's indeed the immeasurable ship. Sumo smiled bitterly. I'm afraid it will appear in the Dustluo 7 stars next time. After all, there aren't many small worlds in the Dead Soul star domain, and even fewer of them are full of energy, right? Sumo's reply shocked all the cultivators present. Then Sumo waved her hands and took out 2 elixirs, which fell in front of Zhoningbu and Ningbyuk respectively. Both of them were seriously injured. If they were not treated in time, it would affect their future cultivation. At the same time, the pressure that Sumo exuded suddenly dissipated. Everyone regained their mobility, but no one dared to move recklessly. Zhoningbu grabbed the pill and swallowed it without hesitation. Thank you, Taoist Morong. Ningbyuk was a little hesitant at first. After all, he had just seen Sumo. However, Zhoningbu had already eaten. If he didn't eat, it wouldn't be satisfying enough. What's more, if Sumo wanted to do anything to them, she didn't have to do this. Just now, she could kill them with a raise of her hand. Therefore, Ningbyuk also swallowed the pill without hesitation. Then, the two sat cross-legged in the void and catalyzed the efficacy of the pill. Of course, there was no problem with Sumo's elixirs, and they were all the best of the same kind. Therefore, after a while, their complexions recovered, and their Dantian calmed down. The elixirs were several times better than those of their own sections. It seemed that Sumo in front of them should be a master of elixirs. Ningbyuk, the law protector of Yuchi's sect, thank you, Taoist Morong. Ningbyuk stood up and bowed to Sumo with cupped fists. I'm Morong Huang. I've just entered the Dead Soul star domain, and I didn't expect to meet your two sections. I'm not talented, and I have no intention of favoring anyone. I just don't want to see you fight against each other, so I tried to persuade you. Sumo cupped her fists at Ningbyuk. I only hope you can see the situation clearly. Turn hostility into friendship, and don't fight. The Red Dust sect and Yuchi sect have been fighting for millions of years. In fact, how could it be resolved by a few words from Sumo? However, Sumo's realm was enough to suppress the current situation, and she had given them the elixirs, so Zhaningbu and Ningbyuk didn't say anything. If you two still think for the sentient beings of the 7 stars of Dustnet, please stop. Sumo said again, Taoist Morong, did you really see the immeasurable ship and even board it? Ningbyuk seemed to be in disbelief. I'm not lying, Sumo said with a smile. The world is boundless, and the path is infinite. In the lotus of life and death, where is the path? These are the words I saw on the immeasurable ship. As she said, Sumo waved one hand, and the round handwriting he saw on the platform appeared in the void. The simple handwriting caused everyone's heart to tremble. It was a ghost ship, and there was no one on it. I've told all this to Patrol Guard Jun, Sumo said. When I met Patrol Guard Jun, the ancient ship had just disappeared. Ningbyuk couldn't help but look at Zhaningbu. Yes, Zhaningbu nodded. When our Red Dust sect arrived, we didn't see the ancient ship. However, the spiritual power fluctuation there was abnormal, and we couldn't find anything. Taoist Morong was not far away. The immeasurable ship. It seems that the legend is true. After listening, Ningbyuk let out a long sigh. So, the fight between your two sects is meaningless. If the 7 stars of Dustnet are destroyed, what will your home be? In thousands of years, it may be a big disaster. Sumo's voice was slightly heavy. How sad it will be to lose your own world and wander in the stars. The last sentence was Sumo's most sincere feeling. In this place, he always felt that he was a guest in a foreign land, not as close and comfortable as the 3 realms in the galaxy. Zhaningbu and Ningbyuk's expressions changed slightly. It should be said that Sumo's words did make sense, and they were moved. However, the overall situation of the Red Dust sect and the Yuchi sect was not completely under their control. There were so many grievances, so how could they just say a few words? However, Zhaningbu and Ningbyuk still looked at each other. Taoist Morong, the future affairs of the 2 sects still need to be decided by the sect master. However, today's matter is over. Ningbyuk said first. However, on behalf of the Yuchi sect, I sincerely invite Taoist Morong to come to our sect. Oh, when Zhaningbu heard this, he couldn't help but smile coldly. Guardian Ning, you are wrong. Taoist Morong is an honored guest of the Red Dust sect. If you want to go to your Yuchi sect, you have to come to my sect first. Sumo couldn't help but smile. It seemed that both sects wanted to make friends with her. You two don't need to argue. It's fate that we meet in the vast universe. If you two are interested, why don't you come on my ship? Let's find a suitable place for you and have a drink. What do you think? Taoist Morong, you have a ship? Zhaningbu was stunned. Of course. Sumo smiled, and then her mind moved. The 3 realms magic ship turned into a black light, and then directly appeared under her feet. At this time, it was only 3 feet long, but it was enough for 3 people to ride. The 30-foot magic ship, with its aura restrained, slightly revealed its demonic nature. Sumo secretly observed, especially Ningbyuk's reaction. However, she didn't find much difference. Zhaningbu and Ningbyuk both regarded the magic ship as a high-level magic weapon. It seemed that they didn't know the magic ship. You two, please. Sumo smiled faintly. Take my ship. You choose the place. Chapter 665. 3 people stood side by side on the demonic boat. Sumo was in the middle, while Zhaningbu and Ningbyuk were on her left and right. They had agreed on a place, which was a floating continent outside the Dustnet's 7 stars, called the 8th mainland. The 8th mainland actually meant that it was not within the 7 stars. The area of this mainland was comparable to the ancient Shu mainland of the original Pure Land. It floated alone in the periphery of the Dustnet 7 stars. From the perspective of the 8th mainland, the Dustnet 7 stars formed a fan shape in its northern star area. If one wanted to return to the Dustnet 7 stars from the Dead Soul Star area, the 8th mainland was a necessary place. Not only that, the 8th mainland did not belong to either the Red Dust sect or the Yuchi sect. It was a free continent. There were millions of cultivators on the continent, as well as many immortal sects. However, these immortal sects naturally could not be compared to the two super sects, the Red Dust sect and the Winged Roar sect. The Red Dust sect and the Yuchi sect had an agreement that no one could interfere with the 8th mainland, let alone make trouble there. On the other hand, the 8th mainland was managed by its own elder council. The Red Dust sect and the Yuchi sect each sent a cultivator to observe, but they had no right to vote. On the 8th mainland, there were always cultivators from all walks of life gathered here. The warships and cultivators of the Red Dust sect and the Yuchi sect often docked here to buy and sell goods. Therefore, to some extent, the 8th mainland was the most lively place in the whole Dustnet 7 stars. In the rain-wind ancient city on the 8th mainland. At this time, Sumo, Zhan Yingbu, and Ning Byuk were standing outside a restaurant, the Heavenly Tower. From the outside, the Heavenly Tower was only a 3-story restaurant. Its architectural style was quite ancient. However, with a dark light flashing in Sumo's eyes, she could already see that there was a different world inside the restaurant. Taoist, Brother Morong, this is a famous restaurant in the entire 8th mainland, Zhan Yingbu said with a smile. Oh, Sumo said with great interest. The owner of such a restaurant in the 8th mainland must not be an ordinary person, right? Of course, Ning Byuk said with a playful smile. The owner of this restaurant is also a cultivator in the peak of the Sea Destruction realm. He is also an elder of the 8th mainland. If it's convenient, we'll introduce you to him later. All right, Sumo nodded. Thus, the three of them stepped into the restaurant. At this moment, a waiter came to greet them. The shop assistant turned out to be an undead cultivator. Sumo nodded inwardly. Apparently, the Heavenly Tower in Windy Rain City was a few levels higher than the Drunken Immortal Tower in Northern Cold City. Welcome, guests. The waiter was well-spoken and well-dressed. Right now, if they weren't in the Heavenly Tower, perhaps no one would think he was just a shop assistant. Yes, Zhan Yingbu and Ning Byuk nodded at the same time and took out a token from their bosoms. The medallion was exactly the same, and it was made of purple redwood. There were faint fluctuations of spirit light coming from it. Tiani seal? The waiter was slightly taken aback when he saw the token. The Heavenly Seal was a special token given by the Heavenly Tower to some special guests. Normally, it was rare to find one in the entire 8th mainland. But today, 2 Heavenly Seals appeared at the same time, and it seemed like the black-clothed cultivator who didn't take out the token was the most distinguished guest. Therefore, the waiter bowed once again. Honorable guests, please forgive me for my poor eyesight. Seniors, please go to Immortal Pavilion number 1 on the top floor. After saying that, the waiter led the way for Sumo, Zhan Yingbu, and Ning Byuk. Immortal Pavilion number 1 was the highest level room in the Heavenly Tower. The three of them followed the waiter up the ancient wooden stairs. However, when they reached the 3rd floor, they didn't see any rooms. When they looked again, they saw the waiter performing a hand incantation gesture, and in an instant, a door of light appeared on the 3rd floor. Seniors, please. Sumo couldn't help but smile inwardly. The Heavenly Tower had really put in a lot of effort. The three of them followed the waiter into the formation. Swoosh! A moment later, their eyes lit up. There seemed to be many auspicious clouds under their feet, and when they took a step forward, they could see many doors. There were large golden characters on top of each door, and right in front of them was a rather large room, with 4 big characters written on it. Immortal Pavilion number 1. After entering the Immortal Pavilion, they saw that the decorations inside were elegant and antique. Moreover, there was a very special kind of incense burning in the cave, which made people feel relaxed and happy. Seniors, please take a seat. As soon as the waiter finished speaking, 2 beautiful female cultivators served them fragrant tea. I want the best immortal seats, special spiritual food, and immortal wine, Ning Byuk said. Serve the food and wine. No one is allowed to enter the cave again. As for other matters, we will handle them ourselves. If there is a need, we will summon you." Jiningbu added, "I understand." The waiter bowed and answered. In just a moment, the immortal seats were placed, and the miscellaneous people left. Only Sumo, Jiningbu, and Ningbyuk were left in Immortal Pavilion number 1. "This heavenly tower is indeed not bad," Sumo said with a smile. At this moment, Jiningbu and Ningbyuk raised their cups at the same time. "Brother Morong, as you said before, in the vast universe, it is fate that we meet. This first cup of wine, we toast Brother Morong." Jiningbu said, "That's right." Ningbyuk said, "Brother Morong has a good cultivation and a benevolent heart. No matter what happens to our sex in the future, today we toast Brother Morong with this cup of wine." "You two are too polite." Sumo smiled and raised her cup. The three clinked their cups and drank. Wine was often a medium between people, and it was the same for immortal wine. It was the first time that Sumo met Jiningbu and Ningbyuk. However, after 3 cups of wine, he became more familiar with the two. They were powerful, but the wine was also immortal wine. Therefore, they were in a good mood. "Patrol Jun, Guardian Ning." At this time, Sumo raised her cup. "Although we have known each other for a short time, in my opinion, you two are heroes. Otherwise, we wouldn't have today's drinking party. Like I said before, I'm not talented, but I'm willing to mediate between the sects of the Red Dust and Feather Puppet, and then work together." As soon as Sumo said this, Jiningbu and Ningbyuk stopped raising their cups in the air, and then looked at each other with a faint, bitter smile on their faces. They couldn't decide such a thing. "Huh," Sumo understood. "You two don't have to do this. Perhaps I'm overestimating myself, but if the two of you are interested, you can introduce me to your esteemed sect leader. Just say that I came down from the immeasurable ship." In this last sentence, Sumo slightly emphasized her tone. Jiningbu and Ningbyuk were both high-ranking people. When Sumo emphasized his tone, they naturally understood the meaning behind it. About the immeasurable ancient ship, Sumo must know something, but she didn't tell them. "Brother Morong, rest assured, I will do my best to introduce you," Ningbyuk said. "After all, Brother Morong is doing this for the Dun Luo 7-star stratagem." "Brother Morong, rest assured," Jiningbu also said. The three of them drank a cup together. After thinking for a while, Sumo asked again, "You two, I have another question. Just now I saw that the magic you used at the end was very strange. Forgive me for being presumptuous, but who taught you all your spells?" Jiningbu and Ningbyuk were stunned, because they didn't expect that Sumo would ask such a question. "Of course it's the magic of our sect," the two of them said almost in unison. "From the founder of the sect?" Sumo asked again. "The magic I used today was taught by the founder of the sect." Ningbyuk said, "The magic I used today was taught by the current sect master of the Red Dust sect." Jiningbu said, "The current sect master?" Sumo was shocked. The magic of the primitive land was taught by the sect master of the Red Dust sect. Chapter 666. Hongchun's sect master, primitive land spell? Jiningbu's words made Sumo's heart stir again, but he looked as usual. "Hee, your two sects really have a deep foundation." Sumo smiled and said, "It seems that both the founder and the current sect master must be peerless figures." Speaking of the founder, Ningbyuk couldn't help but show a yearning look in his eyes. "In fact, there are 2 founders of our Yuchi sect." "Oh." Sumo remained calm and deliberately asked curiously, "What kind of figures are they?" "It is said that the founders of our Yuchi sect were 2 beautiful cultivators. No one knows whether they were men or women. Their appearance is rare in all realms. One likes to wear white, and the other likes to wear black. They call themselves the Black and White Demon King, and they like to wander in separate carriages. Thousands of years ago, they founded the Yuchi sect. Later, on the same day, their Taoist hearts dried up and they disappeared. From then on, the Yuchi sect wore black and white as the sect uniform. Only cultivators above the level of protector and emissary can wear black and white clothes." "Black and White Demon King?" Sumo's heart moved again. "Sumo, who is the Black and White Demon King?" Yi Wuhui asked in the sea of consciousness. Demon practitioner. Sumo also answered in the sea of consciousness. Before the formation of the three realms, the karma roulette had evolved into many worlds. There was once a time and space called the Devil Area. People who cultivate in the Devil Area are called demon practitioners. They are neither men nor women, but they have yin and yang. The Demon King is the two most powerful existences. They are peerless, and the divine beast Yuchi is their seat. In other words, they are one with the divine beast Yuchi. The Devil Flower and the Devil Boat both come from that time and space. Oh, peerless appearance, like you? Yi Wuhui couldn't help asking. Sumo was a little speechless. I am a male practitioner of the three realms. Ha ha ha. Yi Wuhui couldn't help laughing happily. Of course, Ning Byuk and Zhen Ingbu couldn't hear the conversation between Sumo and Yi Wuhui. It is said that the two demon kings have the cultivation of the rebirth realm. Unfortunately, my Yuchi sect has no successor. After the two ancestors, there were no more rebirth level experts. The many spells left by the two demon kings have not been learned by anyone otherwise. Ning Byuk sighed and could not help but look at Zhen Ingbu. He wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. Otherwise, your Yuchi sect would have already unified the 7 stars, and there would be nothing for my red dust sect to do, right? Zhen Ingbu sneered. Hee. Ning Byuk just chuckled twice and then drank the remaining wine in the cup. That was indeed what he thought. The Hongqin sect was a sect that had risen up recently, so how could it be compared to the Yuchi sect? Our red dust sect doesn't have such a powerful ancestor. Zhen Ingbu said slowly. The red dust sect was just a small sect that started on the 7th planet of Dustnet. It grew stronger day by day. During this period, there were several times when the inheritance was almost broken, but in the end it didn't. A million years ago, the current master of the Hongqian sect appeared out of nowhere and gradually formed a force that could compete with the Yuchi sect. There was a sense of pride in Zhen Ingbu's tone. In hundreds of thousands of years, he unified the 4 stars. No one can compare with his great achievements. Zhen Ingbu's words were not false at all. In fact, in the eyes of the Hongqin sect, as long as there was enough time, they could defeat the Yuchi sect and unify the 7 stars. After listening to Zhen Ingbu's words, Ning Byuk did not refute. Because the current master of the Hongqin sect was indeed a monstrous figure. Even if he was called the first master of the Dustnet 7 stars, he deserved the title. Oh. Sumo smiled and could not help but ask, after listening to what Patrol Guardian said, I really want to pay a visit to the master of your sect. May I know the name of the master of the Hongqin sect? Master of the Mei sect. Zhen Ingbu cupped his hands to the void to show his disrespect. Mu Hongqin. Mu Hongqin? As soon as he said this, Sumo's expression suddenly changed. Because on the 8th page of the Dustnet Sutra, he clearly remembered that Wu-Er had written these 2 words. To think of my husband, I have to go through the mortal world. Today, Wu-Er is willing to enter the reincarnation cycle again in the name of Mu Hongqin, only to see her husband again. Mu Hongqin should be Wu-Er, and Mu Jinghong was the reincarnation of Mu Hongqin. The Mu Jinghong in red was the remnant thought of Mu Hongqin in black. However, Mu Jinghong was already dead. How could there be Mu Hongqin in the Dead Soul Star field? For a moment, Sumo did not understand. At that moment, Zhen Ingbu and Ning Byuk both saw the change in Sumo's expression. Brother Morong, what's wrong? Zhen Ingbu asked. Is the master of your sect a female cultivator? Sumo asked again. That's right. Zhen Ingbu said. However, although she's a female cultivator, she is a hero among women. Her realm has reached the peak of the one-lifetime immortal realm. One more step, and you'll be able to enter the rebirth realm. Fellow Morong, do you know Sect Master Hongqin? Ning Byuk frowned slightly. If Morong Huang and the Red Dust Sect Master were old friends, then the situation would be very disadvantageous. Oh, hee. Sumo instantly understood Ning Byuk's thoughts. I do have an old friend called Mu Hongqin. She's also a female cultivator. However, it most likely won't be Sect Master Hongqin. Sumo smiled and said, "However, Protector Ning can rest assured that no matter what, I will not help either side suppress the other side. In my heart, I only hope that all of you can work together and overcome this calamity together." What's more, Sumo looked at Ning Byuk and paused. "I may have some connection with the Yuchi sect." "Oh." Jiningbu and Ning Byuk were slightly stunned. "Fellow Taoist Morong, what do you mean?" Ning Byuk asked. "Hee hee." Sumo chuckled. Then, she turned her hand slightly. With a flash of red light, he pinched 3 of his fingers, and a rose appeared on his fingertips. Blood flower drops. As soon as the red rose appeared, Jiningbu and Ning Byuk's expressions changed suddenly. "Blood flower divine skill," Ning Byuk said in surprise. "Fellow Taoist Morong, how can you use the magic of the Yuchi sect?" "The blood flower divine skill is a secret of the Yuchi sect." Jiningbu's face turned a little ugly. Was this Murong Huang a cultivator of the Yuchi sect? "Hee hee." Sumo smiled and shook her head. Then, she looked at Jiningbu and said, "Patrol Jun, don't think too much. Look again." After that, Sumo's other hand turned over. A talisman rose from his palm. Among it was an ancient character, Desolate. Desolate Demon Seal? This time, it was Jiningbu's turn to exclaim. That was the red dust magic he had used before. However, Sumo did it very casually. It showed that Sumo's mastery of the Desolate Demon Seal was far above Jiningbu's. "Fellow Taoist Morong?" At this time, Jiningbu and Ning Byuk looked at each other and called out at the same time. In their hearts, Sumo was unfathomable. "I may have some connection with the two sects." Sumo sighed. "However, there are some things that I have to figure out. So, I want to meet the masters of the two sections." Jiningbu and Ning Byuk both frowned and nodded slowly. At this time, footsteps came from outside Immortal Pavilion number 1. Chapter 667. The First Heavenly Tower, Immortal Pavilion number 1. The Immortal Cultivator Restaurant was actually protected by many spirit formations. Ordinary footsteps would not be able to enter. Therefore, when she heard the footsteps, Sumo was slightly surprised. "Huh." Ning Byuk laughed. "It must be the master of the First Heavenly Tower." According to the usual practice, the master of the First Heavenly Tower will personally come to toast with the guests who come with the First Heavenly Seal. "We're in for a treat." Jiningbu also nodded with a smile. Sumo did not understand what a treat was. However, the master of the First Heavenly Tower was indeed a special treatment. The footsteps were a reminder to the guests, so that they would not be disturbed. "The master of the First Heavenly Tower, Bayua, is here to see our distinguished guest." A very pleasant voice came from outside the door of Immortal Pavilion number 1. "Huh." Ning Byuk looked at Sumo and laughed. "Brother Morong, the master of the First Heavenly Tower is a wonderful person. You'll know in a moment." Jiningbu was also smiling. "Oh." Sumo still did not know what he meant. "Master of the First Heavenly Tower, please come in." Ning Byuk and Jiningbu both stood up. After all, the master of the First Heavenly Tower was a cultivator at the peak of the Sea Destruction Realm, and also an elder of the Eighth Mainland. Although they were guests, the master of the First Heavenly Tower was not inferior to them. Sumo also stood up to show her courtesy. When he looked again, the celestial screen dissipated and 3 female cultivators walked in from outside. The 2 beautiful female cultivators behind him were holding trays in their hands. On one tray was a jade pot, and on the other tray was a plate of immortal fruits. The leading female cultivator was dressed in a light green robe. She had an extraordinary temperament and a beautiful face. Her watery eyes were slightly rippling, and her exposed collarbone was very attractive. However, Sumo did not pay much attention to her face. His eyes slightly focused on the female cultivator's jade neck, because she was wearing a very special pendant. It was a white jade pendant. However, it was actually a gourd. The white jade was warm and gave off a faint milky glow. One look, and you could tell that it was not an ordinary item. White jade holy gourd. Sumo's heart skipped a beat, but she didn't show it. At this time, Ning Byuk and Jiningbu also looked at the white jade gourd. Then they looked at each other and smiled. They cupped their hands almost at the same time. I'd rather not see house master Bai. Zhen Yingbu greets pavilion lord Bai. Bai Yuer greets protector Ning and patrol guard Zhen. The first heavenly tower's master, Bai Yuer, returned the greeting with a sweet smile. No wonder my subordinates reported that there are two distinguished guests with the first heavenly seal. So it's the two of you. The heavenly tower is truly honored by your gracious presence. Ha! Ning Buji laughed and said, Tower Master Bai, you're too kind. However, if it wasn't for your white gourd jade pendant, we wouldn't have dared to acknowledge you. It's said that the Tower Master of the first heavenly tower has 1,000 faces. Zhan Yingbu said with a smile, 300 years ago, Tower Master Bai didn't look like this. However, although the form is not, the immortal charm is still there. The two of you are overpraising me, Bai Yuer said with a smile. I don't have anything to do normally. It's better to change my appearance often. I'm a bit curious. Why are the two of you drinking and chatting here? The relationship between the Red Dust sect and Yu Chi sect wasn't a secret in the Dust Civ 7-star world. Therefore, it was a good thing that the patrol guards of the Red Dust sect and the protector of the Yu Chi sect didn't fight each other normally. Drinking together in the first immortal pavilion of the Heavenly Tower was something that had never happened before. Ha! Zhen Yingbu and Ning Buji laughed at the same time. Then, they gestured to Bai Yuer to introduce Sumo. Tower Master Bai, this is fellow Taoist Murong. Tower Master Bai, I'm Murong Huang. Nice to meet you. Sumo smiled warmly and cupped her fists. In fact, Bai Yuer had already noticed Sumo the moment she entered the room. One lifetime, immortal realm. In the entire Dust Civ 7-star world, she was definitely a top-notch existence. So it's fellow Taoist Murong. Bai Yuer bowed again and said, Fellow Taoist Murong, is indeed an honor to have Patrol Guard Zhen and Protector Ning sit together. Bai Yuer, apologize for my lack of manners. Tower Master Bai, you're too polite, Sumo said. Fellow Taoist Murong, don't remember Tower Master Bai's appearance, because the next time you see her, she might not be this person, Ning Buji said laughingly. Oh, Sumo couldn't help but smile. Fellow Taoist Murong, you might not know this, but Tower Master Bai's technique is extremely unique. It's called 1,000 Faces in 1,000 Days. Every time you see her, her appearance will be different, Zhen Yingbu said. Therefore, you must remember that she wears a white jade pendant. That's the symbol of her identity. The one who wears the white jade pendant is Tower Master Bai. Otherwise, she's a fake, Ning Buji said laughingly. 1,000 faces in 1,000 days? Sumo had heard their conversation just now. In fact, for cultivators, as long as they reached the core formation realm, changing their appearance was not a difficult task. However, it was not easy to change one's appearance without anyone noticing. Even cultivators with higher cultivation realms than oneself could not see through it. Ordinary cultivators could only conceal their appearance in front of cultivators with lower cultivation realms than themselves. However, it was obvious that Bai Yuer was not in such a situation. This was because even Sumo couldn't see through Bai Yuer's true appearance. If Ning Buji and Zhen Yingbu hadn't pointed it out, he wouldn't have known that Bai Yuer had cast a spell on her appearance. What a powerful magic art, Yi Wu Hui said at this time. Hee, I could do it too, Sumo said in his sea of consciousness. You can conceal your appearance in front of cultivators with higher cultivation realms than you? Yi Wu Hui expressed his doubts. Of course, Sumo smiled. You don't know, but I have the windmill secret technique. It was taught to me by 7th senior sister windmill on the Bone mainland. I can conceal my appearance without any flaws. Oh, Yi Wu Hui laughed. Sumo, teach it to me in the future. Why? Sumo said. It's fun. Yi Wu Hui said happily. Doesn't that woman want to change her appearance and style? At that time, I'll make sure you don't know who I am. Sumo was speechless. The two of them communicated through their divine senses. Of course, the others didn't know. However, Sumo had some ideas about Bai Yuer's spell. After all, there wouldn't be too many spells like that. The immortal gourd hanging on Bai Yuer's neck, and the 1,000 days and 1,000 faces spell must have an extraordinary origin. Brother Morong, don't listen to their jokes. It's my honor to have you as a guest at the Heavenly Tower today. Bayuerer took out a token from her bosom. It was the Heavenly Seal, the same as Zhun Ingbu and Ning Buji's. This Heavenly Seal is for Brother Morong. In the future, if you pass by Windy Rain City or the 8th mainland, please come to the Heavenly Tower. Thank you, Tower Master Bai. Sumo received the token with both hands. In addition, this little sister would like to propose another toast to everyone. Bayuerer took the jade pot from the maidservant behind her and filled each of Sumo and the other two with wine. The fragrance of the wine filled the air. Good wine. Sumo couldn't help but praise. Everyone, please. Bayuerer raised her wine cup with a smile. Please. Everyone raised their cups. As soon as the wine entered her mouth, Sumo's heart skipped a beat. The fragrance of the immortal wine permeated the air, but when it entered her mouth, it was extremely bitter and spicy. At the same time, an extremely powerful spiritual energy filled her body. 7 stars bitter dew. It was the supreme desolation immortal brew. Chapter 668. 7 stars bitter dew. Tai Wang immortal brew. In the past, in the 3 realms, only Tai Wang Emperor could brew this wine. It was also a secret technique of Tai Wang's sect, because the original liquor of 7 stars bitter dew was an absolute immortal liquid. Especially for cultivators below the immortal realm, it was a precious treasure. In the Yizong world, 7 stars bitter dew should have the same effect for cultivators in the mortal realm. As for immortal realm cultivators, the 7-star bitter dew wouldn't be of much help to their cultivation, but it could still be considered a fine wine. It was an absolute good wine for entertainment. After Xiao Tiantian's death, Plum Blossom Spirit Wu Er combined what she knew and used a long time to brew 7 stars bitter dew again, and it was even improved. In the 3 realms, Wu Er did not have time, but in the Xing River world, Wu Er often brewed a few jars. Back then, Xiao Luo was most willing to drink 7 stars bitter dew. So, when the wine entered her mouth, Sumo was shocked. That was definitely 7 stars bitter dew mixed with other ingredients. Tianni Immortal Brew. It really lives up to its reputation. Ningbu held the wine cup and nodded. Although it is bitter and spicy every time, the aftertaste is long and full of immortality. That's right, Zhun Ningbu said. This Tianni Immortal Brew can be called the best wine in Chun Luo 7 stars realm. First bitter, then sweet, and the aftertaste is slightly warm. Bayuer said, "It is like our whole life of cultivation. It is indeed a good wine." Hearing Bayuer's words, Sumo's heart was moved, because that was the true meaning of 7 stars bitter dew. I wonder who in Tianni Tower can brew this wine. This kind of skill could be a great cultivator. House Master Bai, why don't we have a drink together? Huh? Ningbu laughed at the side. Daoist Morong, you don't know. Zhang Ningbu explained with a smile. Actually, you have already drunk with the brewer. Oh, Suemo was slightly surprised. Could it be that this wine was made by House Master Bai? It was indeed made by Little Sister. I spoke a few nonsense words just now and have incurred Brother Morong's ridicule. Bayuer smiled slightly. Amazing. Sumo could not help but praise. Tower Master Bai is indeed talented in both looks and skills. But how did you make such a fine wine? Bayuer laughed. Brother Morong, you flatter me. Usually, when he had nothing better to do, he just happened to drink the immortal brew. Fellow Daoist Morong, if you like it, I'll have someone prepare 2 more jars for you before we leave. Bayuer's words clearly show that she did not want to talk about the 7 stars bitter dew. All right, thank you, House Lord Bai. Sumo smiled and didn't ask any further. Following that, Bayuer smiled and said to the 3 of them, I still have some matters to attend to in the building, so I won't disturb the 3 of you any longer. Enjoy the immortal wine and fruits. Today's debt will be placed on Little Sister. In the future, please come often. If you have any instructions, there are people waiting outside the Celestial Pavilion. Pavilion Master Bai is too polite. Sumo, Ningbyuk, and Jiningbu all expressed their gratitude again. Thus, Bai Yu were left with her maidservants. Sumo tasted the 7 stars bitter dew in the cup and couldn't help but frown. This cup of immortal wine was extremely pure. If not for the inheritance of Tai Huang, it was absolutely impossible to brew the same wine. The so-called saying that Bai Yu brewed it herself was definitely an excuse. However, Bai Yu shouldn't be a reincarnator. However, where did the white jade immortal gourd pendant that she wore and the ability to brew wine come from? The white jade immortal gourd was Lu Hun's most important magic weapon apart from the Buddhist coffin. However, Lu Hun's magic weapon was a real white jade immortal gourd, not a pendant. Yin San had a Buddhist coffin pendant. However, the shape of Bai Yu's pendant was exactly the same as the white jade immortal gourd. That was definitely not a simple coincidence. The successor of the reincarnator of Paradise Earth lineage, Sumo pondered in her heart. However, how could Bai Yu brew the 7 stars bitter dew? What relationship did she have with the lineage of Tai Huang? Either this wine was not personally brewed by Bai Yu, and she was not telling the truth, or there was something else to it. At this moment, Sumo suddenly felt that the people and things she had met since she entered the Scattered Star Zone and arrived at the Dead Soul Star area weren't simple at all. What? Zhaningbu saw something wrong with Sumo's expression. Dao, Brother Morong, are you not used to this Tiani immortal brew? Oh. Sumo came back to her senses and smiled. No, I really think that the Tower Master of the Tiani Tower is indeed a wonderful person, just as you said. Do you know who her master is? Teacher, Ning Byuk and Zhan Ingbu couldn't help but look at each other, but then they shook their heads. The Heavenly Tower has existed on the 8th continent for 40 to 50,000 years. The first Tower Master was this Bai Yu. Ning Byuk said, actually, don't be fooled by the fact that Bai Yu came to toast and seemed very familiar. But in fact, she was very mysterious. It is said that all the cultivators in the Chun Luo 7 stars, including the sect masters of the Red Dust sect and the Yufeng sect, have never seen her face. Zhan Ingbu nodded and said, there are 5 elders in the Elders' Council of the 8th continent. They are all experts of the 8th continent, and Bai Yu is one of them. The strongest among them is at the middle stage of 1 lifetime immortality. However, it is said that Bai Yu's words carry great weight in the Elders' Council. Oh, Sumo asked curiously. Why is that? Zheningbu laughed playfully. There are many different opinions. Some people say that she used her beauty to control 2 of the 5 elders. One of them is that middle stage immortality elder. Some people say that there is actually a reincarnation level expert behind Bai Yu. That expert is the real owner of the Heavenly Tower. Ning Byuk shook his head. In fact, these rumors are groundless. How powerful is a reincarnation level expert? Why would he be in a small Chun Luo 7 stars world? Bai Yu, you are exceptionally intelligent and knowledgeable in the ways of the world. I wonder how many cultivators of the 8th continent have been roped in by this Heavenly Tower. Therefore, she has great influence in the 8th continent. Sumo nodded. He agreed with Ning Byuk's words. Just now, although they had only met for a short time, he could feel that Bai Yu was not an ordinary female cultivator. Female cultivators of the Chun Luo 7 stars are not ordinary people, Ning Byuk said with a wry smile. Zheningbu laughed out loud. Indeed, female cultivators of the Chun Luo 7 stars seem to be very powerful. The corners of Sumo's mouth curved as he raised his cup in invitation. The 3 of them toasted each other and enjoyed themselves to the fullest. At the same time, in another secret chamber in the first Heavenly Tower, Bai Yu was sitting alone in a room. The room was very elegant, and the furnishings were simple. It seemed to be a place for cultivation. At this moment, Bai Yu was gently stroking the pendant on her neck. She murmured to herself, Morong Huang. Morong Huang? Could it be that this name is just a coincidence? Brother Morong, you are not an ordinary cultivator. Bai Yu's lips curled into a smile. Her gaze landed on the opposite wall. There was a painting hanging on the wall. The painting was of a black-robed man with a peerless appearance and demonic temperament. At the corner of the painting, there was a simple, blood-red Huang character. Chapter 669. What a drunken night. Early next morning, Sumo, Zhan Yingbu, and Ning Byuk prepared to leave the heavenly tower. The waiter who had served them before had already prepared 2 jars of 7 stars bitter dew for Sumo and other gifts for Zhan Yingbu and Ning Byuk. It had to be said that Bai Yuer was very considerate. Although she did not appear again, everything had been arranged perfectly. It was clear that there was a reason why she was ranked among the 5 great elders of the 8th mainland. There were many places to visit on the 8th mainland, but Sumo was not in the mood to do so. Right now, the person he wanted to see the most was the sect leader of the Red Dust sect, Mu Hongxin. The 7 battleships of the Red Dust sect and the Featherwing sect stopped at the ports of the 8th continent. Thanks to Sumo's mediation, the hostility between Zhan Yingbu and Ning Byuk had greatly dissipated. They all wanted to know just what kind of relationship Sumo had with their sect. Why was Sumo able to use the spells of their respective sects? Zhan Yingbu and Ning Byuk both wanted to invite Sumo directly to their sects, but only one of them could go first. In the end, Sumo decided to go to the Red Dust sect first. This was Sumo's decision, so Ning Byuk naturally wouldn't force it. Thus, they said their goodbyes at the harbor of the 8th mainland. Ning Byuk rushed back to the Yuchi sect, while Zhan Yingbu took Sumo back to the Hongshan sect. However, he would rather not leave a star guide for Sumo so that they could meet again in the future. "Brother Morong, let's go," Zhan Yingbu said. "All right," Sumo nodded. The two of them entered the cabin together. Other things would naturally be taken care of by others. The Red Dust sect controlled the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th stars of the Dustnet 7 stars. Of these 4 stars, the 6th star was the center, and the other 3 stars formed a triangle. The distance between them was already tens of thousands of miles. The headquarters of the Red Dust sect was located on the 6th planet. In fact, Zhan Yingbu's fleet hadn't returned to the Dustnet 7-star world for hundreds of years. Previously, they had been wandering around the periphery of the Dustnet 7 stars. That was why they were able to arrive so quickly at the place the immeasurable ship had appeared. Right now, the Red Dust warship was moving very quickly within the 7-star world, because they knew all the routes very well. However, there was one thing that Sumo found strange. It was because there were only 3 Dust Civ 7 stars in his soul depository altar. Originally, he thought that some stars weren't important, so they weren't marked. But now, it seemed like that wasn't the reason at all, because according to his current knowledge, the Yuchi sect controlled the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd stars of the Earthnet 7. The Red Dust sect controlled the other 4, and the Winged sect resided on the 1st star. In fact, whether it was the 1st star or the 6th star, in terms of geographical location or size, they far surpassed the other 5 stars. However, these 2 stars were not marked on Sumo's map. According to the current position, the 3 stars of Chunluo in Sumo's star chart corresponded to the 2nd, 5th, and 7th stars. There were no other stars in his star chart. Sumo was a little confused about this. Why were there 3 stars missing from his star map? Could it be that Wooer did it on purpose? But what did it signify? It took about 7 days to travel from the 8th mainland to the 6th star. The first 3 days were uneventful. Sumo and Zhan Yingbu chatted every day and became more familiar with each other. As they got to know each other better, Zhan Yingbu respected Sumo even more. He felt that Sumo's knowledge wasn't ordinary. In fact, Sumo could even answer many of the questions he had about his cultivation. Many of the spells of the Red Dust sect were profound, especially the ones taught by the current sect master. However, under Sumo's guidance, Zhan Yingbu made great progress. He felt that Sumo's attainments and spells weren't below his sect master's. On the 4th day, the Red Dust sect's warship had passed the 4th star. In another 2 days, they would arrive at the 6th Chunluo star. The entire ship was filled with a joyous atmosphere. After all, they hadn't returned for hundreds of years. Sumo and Zhan Yingbu were chatting happily in the cabin. Suddenly, the entire warship shook as if it had hit something. Jiningbu's face darkened, and he was about to ask. At this time, the cultivators' voices came from outside. Patrol guard. The flagship encountered an interstellar rift. Interstellar rift? Jiningbu's expression changed slightly. Interstellar rift. Sumo was also dazed. The vast star domain looked calm and tranquil, but it was far from safe. All kinds of strange powers and situations emerged one after another. Interstellar rifts were one of them. Interstellar rifts range from a few miles long to a few hundred miles long. They were caused by the unbalanced energies in the universe. These rifts were almost undetectable and changed constantly. They were fluid and changed according to the environment. Small interstellar rifts weren't dangerous. The left patrol flagship of the Red Dust sect could easily charge through them. However, since they had encountered an interstellar rift, it was obvious that they had encountered a big one. Jiningbu's body moved, and he was already out of the cabin. Sumo flew out after him. On the deck, many cultivators of the Red Dust sect were thinking of a solution. At this time, everything around them had fallen into complete darkness. The left patrol flagship of the Red Dust sect seemed to have fallen into a giant black hole. The other 6 battleships were no longer in its field of vision. At this moment, dozens of cultivators took out their magic treasures at the same time, trying to illuminate the surrounding space. However, as soon as they took out their magic treasures, they were swallowed by the darkness. "Be careful! This is an engulfing rift," a cultivator shouted. Engulfing rifts, as the name suggested, were rifts that could swallow many magic treasures, aircrafts, and even high-level cultivators. In fact, many cultivators were puzzled. This route had always been safe. There are almost no large interstellar rifts in the Dun Luo 7-star realm. They didn't expect to encounter one today. "Release the sea exploration anchor," Jiningbu shouted. Boom! Bang! Following his order, the decks on the left patrol flagship opened at the same time. 4 beams of white light shot out. Each beam was 28 feet in diameter, like a heavy cannon. "Sea exploration anchor." Its head was a giant flying claw. Usually, it was used to grab small battleships in the universe. However, it could be used to escape at a critical moment. At this time, the battleships were trapped in the interstellar rift. If they wanted to escape, they only needed to grab the edge of the rift with any of the anchors. Each anchor was thousands of miles long, more than enough. However, something unexpected happened. None of the 4 anchors managed to grab the edge of the rift. This didn't make sense. Was there an interstellar rift thousands of miles long? "Sumo, this isn't an interstellar rift. It's a technique." Yi Wuhui's voice sounded. At this time, Sumo also felt the abnormality. Boom! Crack! At this time, a beam of red light descended from the sky, heading straight for the left patrol flagship. In the void, the giant tail of light was like a long sword that could split the sky, instantly illuminating and cutting down everything. Chapter 670. Boom! That shocking saber radiance directly smashed the left patrolling flagship in a single move. Forget the cultivators of the Red Dust sect. Even Sumo was shaken to the core by that scene. That was an irresistible power. The left patrol flagship was the large battleship of the Red Dust sect. Usually, it traveled across the galaxy and was very majestic. But now, under that shocking light, it was like rotten wood. There were many cultivators below the break world level on the left patrol flagship. Without the battleship, they couldn't survive in the galaxy. Instantly, the black clothes scattered like butterflies. Many cultivators on the deck turned into black mist. Even break world cultivators were destroyed by that light. Their souls were destroyed. It was a disaster that no one had expected. Many cultivators didn't even understand what was going on before they died in the galaxy. That was a power above the cycle of reincarnation. "Sumo, be careful," Yi Wuhui shouted in Sumo's mind. At this moment, the aftershock of the blade light was heading straight for Sumo. Sumo's eyes suddenly shot out a black light, but it was a power that he didn't dare to face head-on. However, he clearly saw that strange saber light. To be more accurate, it wasn't a real knife. That knife was actually in the shape of a hook. However, that hook was bigger than the entire Left Patrol flagship. It was a heaven hook. Actually, just the tip of the hook had scratched the body of the ship, and the Left Patrol flagship couldn't withstand it. That scene was really scary. In a flash, Sumo rolled up his long sleeves. He could only roll up Zhoningbu, who wasn't far away. He couldn't save the others at all. At that moment, the entire Left Patrol flagship had turned to dust. Sumo picked up Zhoningbu, and with a thought, the demonic boat appeared beneath his feet. "Brother Morone," Zhoningbu couldn't help but shout. "Silence!" Sumo shouted. Following Zhoningbu's shout, the heaven hook flew back. It seemed to have heard Zhoningbu's voice. Sumo saw that there was a strange light on the heaven hook, which was like a vertical line that brought it along. The heaven hook was like a pendulum that hung in the vast universe, swaying left and right. Sumo had no time to think. It was more important to escape. If this heaven hook were to hit Sumo, even Sumo's rebirth realm defense would not be able to withstand it. In an instant, the demonic boat emitted a black light that shot into the sky. At this moment, Sumo had no sense of direction, because he felt as if he was in an unknown cage, surrounded by darkness. He could only rely on his intuition and rush upwards. Fortunately, the heaven hook did not chase after Sumo. Otherwise, everything would be hard to say. "Sumo, turn left." Yi Wuhui's voice rang out. Sumo instinctively moved to the left. Whoosh! In an instant, he felt as if he had suddenly rushed out of an abyss, and countless splashes of water appeared around him. The sound of flowing water was incessant, but in reality, there was not even a drop of water. Suddenly, the starlight shone brightly. They returned to the DustNet 7-star world. Patrol Guardian, Senior Morone. At this moment, the remaining 6 battleships of the Red Dust sect had gathered around them. The commanders of the 6 battleships were all early-stage sea destruction realm cultivators. They had been cruising in this star region for more than 2 hours. Previously, when the Left Patrol flagship disappeared, they had expected that it might have encountered an interstellar rift. However, with the configuration of the Left Patrol flagship, even if it encountered an interstellar rift, it could escape. But now, when they saw Sumo suddenly appear on her demonic boat, and with Zhoningbu in it, they knew that the situation was not good. The 6 commanders immediately gathered around him. Zhoningbu had actually fainted. The power of the heaven hook just now was not something he could resist. If it were not for Sumo, he would have died without a doubt. Even so, he had suffered a great impact. Peak Sea Destruction Realm experts were absolute experts in the DustNet 7-star world. But now his face was pale, and his body was covered in wounds. "Patrol Guardian." The 6 commanders called out urgently. "Senior Morone, where is the Left Patrol flagship? Was it ambushed by the Yuchi sect?" One of the commanders asked. "The Left Patrol flagship flew away, and the others died." Sumo sighed. "My ability is limited, and I could only save Patrol Guardian. They are not from the Yuchi sect. They definitely do not have that kind of power." Sumo looked back at the place where she had rushed out, and it had completely calmed down. That place was an ordinary starry sky, and there was nothing special about it. Raising her hand, Sumo took out a puppet. Wherever the puppet went, it was as usual. That Dao technique disappeared. Yi Wuhui sighed. "That was close. What happened then?" Sumo asked. "I don't know," Yi Wuhui said. "When I traveled the stars with the Patriarch, we encountered interstellar rifts, but we never encountered something like this. But I'm sure that we just entered a Dao technique vortex. That heaven hook was really terrifying. It was definitely not from the Dead Souls star field. What kind of technique was that?" Suemo frowned inwardly. That kind of power just now was at least at the venerable level. It seems that the power was not aimed at us. We were lucky to be able to escape. Patrol Guardian. At this time, Zhoningbu had already woken up on Sumo's magic boat. He looked around, and there was still a trace of fear in his eyes. The Left Patrol Guard of the Red Dust sect had a high position in the Dust Civ 7 stars. Zhoningbu had cultivated for tens of thousands of years, and he had almost traveled to every corner of the dust Civ 7 stars. His subordinates' left patrol fleet had countless cruises. However, it was the first time that a flagship had been destroyed. Moreover, it was very clean and even very strange. Thank you, Doubt Brother Morong, for saving my life. Zheningbu calmed himself down and sighed. He knew that if it were not for Sumo, he would have been dead. Every battleship send out guards to protect the flying ship. The 6 battleships form the Fish Dragon formation and protect Dao Brother Morong's ship. Then advance at full speed. Return to the sect first and think about it. Zheningbu ordered. Yes. The 6 commanders accepted the order. The Red Dust Sect's fleet set off again and went straight to the 6th star. Zheningbu sat cross-legged on the magic boat to heal himself, while Sumo secretly spread out her divine sense to investigate everything. The entire Red Dust Sect's fleet was covered in a layer of shadow. Bamboo forest, clear pond, thin mist, distant mountains. It seemed to be a paradise. There was a bamboo stool beside the pond. A man wearing a bamboo hat sat on the bamboo stool. He was wearing coarse clothes and was barefoot. The bamboo hat covered his face. He held a bamboo pole in one hand and was fishing in the pond. At this moment, the bamboo pole in his hand shook slightly. The man in the bamboo hat let out a sound of surprise. Not far away, there was a wooden bridge. At this moment, a woman in her 20s walked on the wooden bridge. She wore a cloth dress and braided hairpins. She looked like an ordinary village girl. She held a dustpan used to raise silkworms in one hand and a few mulberry leaves in the other. The village girl seemed to hear the man in the bamboo hat surprise and laughed. What? Mr. Wren, your fish ran away? Hee hee. The man in the bamboo hat raised his head. He looked like a handsome scholar. Yes, fish nowadays are very cunning. They ran away when I wasn't paying attention. Then why don't you learn from me to raise silkworms? The village girl joked. They won't be able to run away from my dustpan. Silkworms are more obedient than your fish. Then, before Mr. Run could reply, the village girl turned and left with a smile. Hee hee. Mr. Wren looked at the village girl's disappearing figure, then at the ripples in the pond. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. The aura of the 3 realms? Then, Mr. Wren's lips curled up slightly. That smile was very warm. In fact, the pond was filled with white lotus flowers. Each of them was the size of a bowl, crystal clear and fragrant. The mountain in the distance was faintly visible in the mist. It was a patch of snow white. Chapter 671. From a bird's eye view, the 6th planet was a red planet. It was about 3 times the size of the pure Earth planet. The surface of the continent was covered by a thick layer of red rocks. The ocean was less than 1/3 the size of the continent, but also glowed red. Even the Dead Soul star field, it was a special planet. The left patrol fleet finally approached the 6th planet. The Red Dust sect had already received the news. The return of the left patrol fleet was a big deal for the Red Dust sect. There was a special port in the outer region of the 6th planet. The Red Dust sect's battleships could dock there, and all cultivators could choose to take the sect's flying ship or return to the inner region of the 6th planet. Zheningbu's injuries were mostly healed, and Sumo put away her demonic boat. They chose to take the Red Dust sect's outer region flying ship and land in the inner region of the 6th planet starport. There were already cultivators from the Red Dust sect waiting for them. Patrol Guardian, welcome back. More than 10 cultivators from the Red Dust sect were waiting outside the starport. The leader was an old man. He was tall and wore embroidered clothes with a large cloak. He had an extraordinary bearing. Elder Zhuang, how is it possible for Ingbu to trouble you? Zheningbu bowed deeply, slightly agitated. The old man in front of him was one of the 2 Guardian Star Elders of the Red Dust sect, Zhuang Shengzi. First life, immortal early stage. Below the Red Dust sect's sect master, the 2 Guardian Star Elders were the leaders. Zhuang Shengzi personally came to welcome them, which showed how much the sect valued the left patrol fleet. Patrol Guardian, what are you talking about? Zhuang Shengzi held Zhen Ingbu's hand. The left patrol fleet has been drifting outside the star for hundreds of years. It's been hard work. AI, Hearing Zhuang Shengzi's words, Zheningbu couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. Elder Zhuang, we've heard about the left patrol fleet. Patrol Guard Zhen, don't blame yourself. Everything needs to be planned. Zhuang Shengzi gestured for Zheningbu not to say more, then patted his shoulder. Then, Zhuang Shengzi turned and bowed deeply to Sumo. Red Dust Sect Guardian Star Elder Zhuang Shengzi greets Taoist Murong. I heard that fellow Taoist Murong had lent a helping hand in order to save Patrol Guardian. On behalf of the sect leader and everyone in the Red Dust Sect, I would like to thank you once again, fellow Taoist Murong. Shame. I'm ashamed. Sumo cupped her hands and returned the greeting. My ability is limited, and I'm not able to protect too many fellow Taoists. I blame myself. Elder Zhuang, you don't have to thank me. Everyone exchanged a few more pleasantries. Then, under Zhuang Shengzi's guidance, they entered the teleportation portal and headed for the Red Dust Sect. The Red Dust Sect was located at the very center of the six-star continent. It was a red mountain range that stretched for thousands of miles. If one were to look down from the sky, it would look like a giant blood-red dragon lying on the sixth planet. Mountains stood in great numbers, pointing straight into the heavens. Dozens of cultivators from the Red Dust Sect surrounded Sumo, Zhuang Shengzi, and Zheningbu as they were teleported to the foot of the mountain. The Red Dust Sect was extremely majestic. The two red mountain peaks were as straight as swords. Between the two peaks was the word Red Dust, which had been conjured by a spell. It was surrounded by twinkling stars, looking extremely dreamy. All kinds of flying Dharma treasures flew back and forth between the mountains. Looking down from the mountain gate, many palaces were built against the mountains, all of them ancient and simple in style, each emitting brilliance. Fellow Taoist Murong, please come in. The sect master of the Biao sect is already waiting for you in the main hall, Zhuang Shengzi said. Mu Hongchen. Hearing this, Sumo's heart was filled with anticipation. Was the sect master of the Red Dust Sect really Mu Jinghong? They didn't speak along the way, and soon they arrived outside the Red Dust main hall. The blood-red main hall was majestic and solemn. There were 81 steps, each of which was 3 feet high. Cultivators standing at the bottom of the steps were really like ants. It served as a foil to the Red Dust main hall's majesty. At that moment, Sumo could feel that the aura of the surrounding Red Dust Sect cultivators standing in front of the main hall had changed slightly. Although they were all immortal stage cultivators, with the lowest cultivation level being the late-stage soul burial realm, in front of the Red Dust main hall, they were like ordinary people on a pilgrimage. Their expressions were solemn and slightly nervous. How grand! Yu Wu said in his sea of consciousness. It seems that Mu Hongchun is indeed a character. These cultivators should be absolutely in awe of him. Sumo didn't say anything. At that moment, he just wanted to see Mu Hongchun immediately, and even his heart was a little nervous. His gaze fell on the lintel of the Red Dust main hall. Immortal Red Dust. For big black words were impressively in front of him, extremely eye-catching. Town Elder Zhuang Shengzi, Left Patrol Guard Zheningbu, and fellow Taoist Murong are here to see the sect master. Zhuang Shengzi bowed towards the main hall and said loudly. Enter. A moment later, a voice came from inside the Red Dust main hall. The voice was also quite loud, like the sound of a bell. Zhuang Shengzi signaled Sumo and Zheningbu, and the three of them walked up the steps. Zhuang Shengzi was in front, Sumo and Zheningbu were on the left and right, while the other Red Dust Sect cultivators were not qualified to enter the main hall and could only wait below. The 3-feet-high steps, if it was a mortal, it would be impossible for them to walk up normally. At this moment, Zhuang Shengzi used his spiritual power to float his body, and then he walked up step by step. Zheningbu did the same, and Sumo could only do as the Romans do. Actually, they could totally take a step up. However, other than the Red Dust Sect Master, no one else dared to enter the Red Dust main hall like that. Walking up 9 by 9, 81 steps required this kind of ceremonial feeling. It could be said that every place in the Red Dust sect reflected the supreme majesty of the sect master. Oomph. Yi Wuhui couldn't help but snort coldly. She didn't approve of such a method. 81 steps wasn't long, but it wasn't short either. When Sumo and the others stood at the main entrance of the main hall, the two doors slowly opened. However, there was no sound. A rather mysterious aura rushed towards them. Zhuang Shengzi lowered his head slightly, and his attitude became more and more respectful. Sumo and Zhan Yingbu followed on the left and right, and directly entered the main hall. Sumo secretly observed that the entire main hall was mainly red. There were red pillars that could be hugged, and a vermilion ceiling. On both sides of the main hall's passage, there were 7 young male cultivators. They were all wearing white robes with soft armor underneath. Their eyes were shining, and they were full of energy. Their realm was the unified great completion of the breaking world. They were the elites of the Red Dust sect. And in the middle of the main hall, there was a white jade platform. What was special was that there was a red curtain on the platform. Behind the curtain, there was a person sitting. Behind that person, there were 2 figures. From their figures, there were 2 female cultivators. Red Dust Sect's Zhanxing Elder Zhuang Shengzi. Red Dust Sect's Left Patrol Envoy Zheningbu. Greetings, Sect Master. After that, Zhuang Shengzi and Zhan Yingbu both knelt on one knee and saluted. Elder Zhuang, Patrol Envoy Zhen, please rise. The voice of the Red Dust Sect Master was very pleasant, but it was cold and full of a sense of alienation. Hearing that voice, Sumo couldn't help but feel nervous. Of course, he didn't kneel, but looked at the red curtain. Whoosh! At that moment, the curtain fluttered and separated to 2 sides. At that moment, on the white jade platform, there was a woman in red sitting upright. Her red clothes were like blood, and her black hair was like ink. Her skin was whiter than snow, and her face was extremely beautiful. Her temperament was out of this world, and she was as cold as an immortal. Mu Jinghong. Sumo's expression changed, and she couldn't help but say, Senior Sister Mu? However, the woman in red couldn't help but frown slightly. She looked at Sumo very indifferently. There wasn't much emotion in her eyes. Not even the coldness could be seen. Chapter 672. Senior Apprentice Sister Mu. When the red curtains were pulled open, the entire hall was silent. And when Sumo called out Senior Apprentice Sister Mu, every cultivator heard it clearly. Senior Apprentice Sister Mu? Zhan Yingbu lowered his head, but his expression changed. He thought that the Mu Hongshan that Murong Huang knew was indeed the sect leader. No wonder he knew so many Hongshan techniques. So he was the sect leader's junior brother. However, Zhan Yingbu had never heard of a so-called fellow sect leader in his own sect. It was said that the Hongshan sect leader had appeared out of nowhere 1,000,000 years ago and did not have a master. No one in the Hongshan sect knew the sect leader's past. Zhuang Shengzi did not expect this situation either. However, he did not understand Sumo as well as Zhan Yingbu did. He did not know what she meant, so he lowered his head and did not dare to speak. Senior Apprentice Sister Mu? Yi Wuhui exclaimed in Sumo's mind. Sumo, isn't your senior apprentice sister Mu called Mu Jinghong? The sect leader of the Hongshan sect is called Mu Hongshan. Sumo heard Yi Wuhui's question, but she was not in the mood to explain. The others in the hall did not react for a moment. Moreover, who would dare to speak casually in front of the Hongshan sect leader? What was going on? The sect leader, Mu Hongshan, sized up Sumo indifferently. Then, he raised his eyebrows and said calmly, Fellow cultivator Mu, what did you just say? Senior Apprentice Sister Mu. Sumo met Mu Hongshan's gaze without flinching, because she was sure that the sect leader in front of her was Mu Jinghong. First immortal full stage. That was the 9th stage of the original immortal stage in the 3 realms. Sumo was very clear about Mu Hongshan's stage. The Mu Hongshan in front of her was clearly Mu Jinghong's red-clothed state. However, Mu Jinghong should recognize her even in his red-clothed state. The current Sumo looked exactly the same as before. Actually, Sumo had some doubts. Be it Mu Jinghong or Mu Hongshan. How did he really encounter it? Back then, Mu Jinghong had died in his arms, and he had killed him with his own hands. Wu Er once said that she had reincarnated under the name of Mu Hongchun. However, all of this should have happened before Mu Jinghong had arrived at the Bone Continent. Sumo had come to the Dead Soul domain to find and rescue Plum Blossom 5 Er. However, he had met Mu Jinghong. Everything seemed a little chaotic. However, Sumo didn't have the time to think about it. Fellow Murong, did you know me before? Mu Hongchun looked at Sumo and smiled faintly. However, that smile was more like the unfathomable smile of a person who had been in a high position for a long time. That kind of smile usually did not contain kindness. Senior Sister Mu, you don't remember me? Sumo calmed herself down. Ha! Mu Hongchun shook his head. Fellow Taoist Murong, I have cultivated in the Dun Luo 7 stars for 1,000,000 years. However, I have never seen you before. Could it be that you've got the wrong person? Got the wrong person? Sumo frowned and smiled bitterly. Sect leader Mu, if you haven't heard of Murong Huang's name, have you heard of Xiao Luo and Sumo? Xiao Luo? Sumo? Mu Hongchun pondered for a moment. Then his lips curled into a smile, and he shook his head again. I don't know the two you mentioned either. Sumo shouldn't be lying. Yiwu Hui said. Yiwu Hui was in Sumo's sea of consciousness, so she could see and hear everything. Sumo nodded inwardly. He naturally had his own judgment. Mu Hongchun's expression was natural, even a little distant. She definitely didn't look like she was trying to hide anything. Furthermore, Mu Hongchun was only a one-lifetime immortal. It wouldn't be easy for her to hide anything from Sumo. Most importantly, there was no need for her to hide anything from Mu Jinghong. At the same time, Sumo believed that the real Mu Jinghong wouldn't be so calm when he saw her. Things were a little complicated. It seemed like she had to take things slowly. Thus, Sumo controlled her emotions and cupped her fists at Mu Hongchun. I have an old friend with the same name as you, sect leader, and they look very similar. Earlier, I was rash and rude. I hope that Sovereign Mu can forgive me. It's all right. Mu Hongchun smiled faintly. I heard that the left patrol fleet encountered a galaxy crack, and it was you who saved Patrol Guardian? That's right. Patrol Guardian and I are fated to meet. Sumo said humbly. Unfortunately, the situation was dire, and I could only save one person. The left patrol fleet's flagship is a first-class warship of our sect. It was destroyed in an instant, and the situation must have been dire. Mu Hongchun looked at Sumo and said, It's already a blessing that you could save Patrol Guardian. Elder Zhuang. Mu Hongchun looked at Zhuang Shengzi. I'm here. Zhuang Shengzi replied. You must be tired from your journey. I'll have to trouble Elder Zhuang to bring you to the guest room at the back of the mountain to rest. At the same time, when we reach the back mountain, you can invite fellow Taoist Murong to the Red Dust Pavilion for a look. Red Dust Pavilion. Zhuang Shengzi's eyes flashed with surprise when he heard these 3 words. Understand, fellow Murong, the Red Dust Pavilion is where the treasures of our sect are hidden. If there are any treasures that you like, you can pick one as a token of my sincerity. Thank you, Sect Leader Mu. Sumo said, Tonight, I will hold another banquet to entertain you. We can talk about other things later. Mu Hongchun looked at Sumo, then turned his head and signaled Zhuang Shengzi with his eyes. Fellow Murong, please, please. Thus, Zhuang Shengzi led Sumo out of the Red Dust Pavilion. At this moment, Zhang Bu did not receive the order to leave the pavilion. He understood that the sect leader must have something to ask him alone. Patrol Zhun. After Sumo left, Mu Hongchun looked at Zhang Ingbu and said in a cold voice, I'm here. Zhang Ingbu trembled and bowed, waiting for the order. You've worked hard for 100 years. That's my responsibility. Mu Hongchun nodded his head and leaned back slightly. Patrol Guard Zhun, please tell me everything that happened when you met Murong Huang. Don't leave out a single detail. Don't hide anything. Her voice was full of authority. Yes, Zhang Ingbu answered. Then, Zhang Ingbu reported how he met Sumo in the Dead Soul Star field, how Sumo resolved the fight between him and Ning Byuk, how they went to the Heavenly Tower together, and how they encountered the interstellar crack. Zheng Bu described everything in great detail, for fear of missing something. Mu Hongqian leaned against the big chair and closed her eyes. There was almost no change in her expression. That's everything. Zheng Bu said at the end, "Sect leader, if you want to know anything else, please tell me." Mu Hongqian opened her eyes and nodded with satisfaction. Did Ning Byuk return to the Yu Chi sect directly? I think so, but I didn't send anyone to investigate in secret. Zheng Bu said cautiously. Are you sure that the so-called interstellar crack wasn't caused by the Yu Chi sect? Mu Hongqian asked. I'm sure. Zheng Bu said firmly. That day, the power in the interstellar crack was extremely strong. Even a Yu Chi sect leader couldn't have that kind of power. Ha! Mu Hongqian laughed coldly. It could destroy the left patrol flagship in an instant, and all the cultivators were killed. The Yu Chi sect indeed didn't have that kind of ability. But Morong Huang was actually able to bring you out unscathed? What? Zheng Bu didn't know how to answer. A rogue cultivator integrated Hongqian and Yu Chi's spells into himself? Rushed out of the interstellar crack? Mu Hongqian frowned. Morong Huang is not simple. Patrol Zhen, don't mention the so-called reconciliation between Hongqian and Yu Chi. Mu Hongqian looked at Zheng Bu and said slowly, That's impossible. Do you understand? I know my mistake. Zheng Bu said in fear. Go back and have a good rest. Mu Hongqian softened her tone. I'll get someone to send you a decay-breaking elixir to help you advance in the future. Thank you, sect leader. Zheng Bu was very excited, because a decay-breaking elixir could increase his chances of advancing by 30%. One had to know that he had been stuck at the perfected sea destruction realm for 30,000 years. Zheng Bu left. The red curtain closed slowly. Morong Huang, Xiao Luo, Sumo? Mu Hongqian murmured to herself, her eyes calm. She really didn't know those people. Chapter 673. Red Dust Sect's Back Mountain. Zhuang Shengzi led Sumo to a small building. It was called a small building because it wasn't very tall, only 3 stories. However, it was slightly different from the rest of the Red Dust sect. It was light green in color. It was simple and elegant, unique in its own way. The building was surrounded by slender bamboos. The wind blew, rustling the bamboo leaves. Standing in front of this small building, Sumo felt extremely comfortable and at ease. Looking again, there was a blackboard hanging on the lintel of the building, with the words Red Dust Pavilion written in light gold. Fellow Taoist Morong, this is the Red Dust Pavilion. Zhuang Shengzi looked at the Red Dust Pavilion with a slightly complicated expression. When we enter, you must choose your treasure carefully. Don't miss the opportunity. Elder Zhuang, this Red Dust Pavilion is so secluded. Normally, it isn't open to the sect's disciples, right? Sumo said. Of course. Zhuang Shengzi nodded with a bitter smile. To tell you the truth, let alone ordinary disciples, even I can't enter. Oh. Sumo was slightly surprised. The Red Dust Pavilion is an important place of our sect. Most of the treasures that the sect has accumulated over millions of years are stored here. Don't be fooled by its clean and elegant surroundings, but it's actually full of danger. Ordinary people can't even get close. If not for accompanying fellow Taoist Morong, I wouldn't be here today. I can only enter the Red Dust Pavilion once every 1,000 years, and I can only choose one treasure at a time. Elder Zhuang, you're only allowed to enter the Red Dust sect once every 1,000 years? Sumo was even more surprised. That's right. Zhuang Shengzi nodded. And in the entire Red Dust sect, apart from me, only the other Polaris Elder, Elder Jian, can enter once every 1,000 years. The rest, even the 4 great patrolmen, can only enter once every 3,000 years to choose a treasure. Unless they break through to the one lifetime immortal realm, then they can enter once every 1,000 years. If the other disciples want to enter the Red Dust Pavilion, they have to advance quickly or have made some special contributions. Even so, they cannot enter the 3rd floor of the Red Dust Pavilion. Then Sovereign Mu can always come and go as he pleases, right? Sumo asked again. Hee. Zhuang Shengzi smiled. Of course there is no place in the Red Dust sect that the sovereign cannot go, but the Red Dust Pavilion Sovereign Mu almost never visits. Oh, Sumo was puzzled. Why? Because sect leader doesn't need it. Zhuang Shengzi smiled a little helplessly. From what I know, Sovereign Mu has never taken a single magic treasure from the Red Dust Pavilion, but has sent quite a number of magic treasures in. Then isn't Sovereign Mu going to use a magical artifact? Of course. However, none of the sect master's magic treasures are from the Red Dust Pavilion. Zhuang Shengzi's eyes were filled with disbelief. The sect master is powerful and mysterious. You can't judge her with common sense. Zhuang Shengzi looked at Sumo and said nothing. Sumo nodded and didn't ask any more questions. Thus, Zhuang Shengzi brought Sumo directly into the Red Dust Pavilion. Greetings, Elder Zhuang. The person in charge of the first floor was an old god burying grade cultivator. His face was full of wrinkles, and he looked like he didn't have much lifespan left. Elder Qi, the sect master has ordered me to bring this Taoist here to choose a magic treasure, Zhuang Shengzi said politely, because this old cultivator had been looking after the Red Dust Pavilion for many years. Even if Mu Hongqin came, he would respectfully call him Elder Qi. Hee. That old cultivator laughed. This old man has already received the sect master's order. Saying that old cultivator looked at Sumo and bowed to Zhuang Shengzi to pass a jade slip. Sorry to trouble you, Elder Qi. Zhuang Shengzi took the jade slip and brought Sumo straight to the second floor. Taoist Morong. The magic treasures on the first floor are relatively low-leveled and probably won't enter your eyes. Zhuang Shengzi smiled as he explained. So, I'll bring you to the second floor to take a look. I'll listen to Elder Zhuang's arrangements. Sumo smiled. The two of them went straight to the second floor of the Red Dust Pavilion. In fact, Sumo's divine sense had already been secretly spread out. Zhuang Shengzi couldn't detect a reincarnation-grade divine sense at all. The buildings of cultivators were usually filled with a whole new world. For example, the first Heaven Tower on the 8th mainland was far better than what it looked like from the outside. But this Red Dust Pavilion was not. What looked like from the outside was how it looked on the inside. The entire Red Dust Pavilion didn't seem worthy of the huge Red Dust sect. After all, the Red Dust sect was an interstellar sect that ruled over 4 small worlds. In the former Pure Land, whether it was the chaotic God sect or the ancient Shu Xianming, none of the other sects could be mentioned in the same breath as it. Such a place with hidden treasures really surprised Sumo. Just as Zhuang Shengzi said, the first floor of the Red Dust Pavilion didn't have any high-level magic treasures. There are many kinds of magic treasures, but they were basically at the Red Dust stage. The lowest level was only at the Undying stage. In the eyes of the current Sumo, magic treasures of that level couldn't even be called magic treasures. There was definitely a reason why Zhuang Shengzi didn't bring them to the first floor. Taoist Morong, the magic treasures on the second floor aren't that outstanding, but some of them are still special. Why don't you take a look? But for the final selection, it's better for us to go to the third floor. Zhuang Shengzi said. Yes. Sumo nodded. Then, she followed Zhuang Shengzi around the second floor. The entire floor wasn't tens of feet wide, but there were thousands of magic treasures. They were of different sizes and functions. Most of the magic treasures were at the immortal stage. Sumo casually looked around and found a rather special gadget. However, as long as Sumo took a look, she could basically refine those magic treasures. So, forget about the magic treasures that moved Sumo. Sumo didn't even have the mood to randomly pick one. But out of politeness, Sumo still looked through them all. Hee. Zhuang Shengzi laughed. Taoist Morong, please go upstairs. Zhuang Shengzi naturally saw that Sumo didn't look at those magic treasures at all. So, he brought Sumo up to the third floor. There was a light screen between the third and second floor of the Red Dust Pavilion. That light screen was used to block ordinary disciples who didn't have the qualifications. The two of them naturally weren't blocked. However, when Sumo passed through that light door, his heart couldn't help but slightly moved. because at that moment, he felt as if there was a cultivator secretly looking at him. But that feeling was fleeting. Entering the third floor, Sumo's divine sense spread out again. Everything was normal around. In fact, in the entire red dust pavilion, other than him and Zhuang Xingzi, there was only that old qi cultivator who was dozing off on the first floor. As for that old qi cultivator, Sumo had already checked, and there was no problem. That was just an ordinary old burial god. However, just when he was checking everything, Sumo's soul heart suddenly jumped. This was because he saw a magic staff floating in the corner of the third floor. That magic staff was dark brown and had a faint brilliance. At the same time, there were some protruding plum blossoms on it. Sumo's eyes narrowed slightly. That was Wu Er's plum blossom magic staff. Chapter 674. Plum Blossom Staff? Sumo did not expect to see a plum blossom staff in the Hongchen Pavilion. That staff was Wu Er's personal magical weapon. Why was it here? Actually, there were not many magical weapons in the entire third level of Hongchen sect that caught Sumo's eye. After all, even if it was an ordinary rebirth level magical weapon, to Sumo, it might not be much. Moreover, there was not a single revered level magical weapon here. After walking one round, Sumo stopped in front of the plum blossom staff. Zhuang Xingzi was surprised. Could it be that fellow Taoist Murong has taken a fancy to this staff? From what he saw, this staff was only slightly more exquisite and was not a rebirth level magical weapon. There were at least hundreds of magical weapons on the third level that were better than this staff. If he had to choose, he would definitely not choose this staff. And Sumo smiled faintly. Elder Zhuang, there is no such thing as an undeserved reward. But I cannot reject Sovereign Mu's good intentions. The treasures hidden here are all precious treasures of your sect, and it is not convenient for me to take them. But this staff is rather exquisite and suits my heart. So I shall choose this one. Fellow Taoist Murong, are you really not going to reconsider? From what Zhuang Xingzi saw, it was a pity that Sumo used this opportunity to choose a plum blossom staff. No need to reconsider. Sumo smiled. I understand Elder Zhuang's good intentions. Leave those rebirth-level magical weapons for your sect's disciples. Sigh. Zhuang Xingzi nodded his head. Fellow Taoist Murong is really a benevolent person. After saying that, Zhuang Xingzi waved the jade letter in his hand. The white light that wrapped around the plum blossom staff quietly dispersed. Zhuang Xingzi took the staff and passed it to Sumo. Thank you, Elder Zhuang. Sumo received it with both hands. At that moment, Sumo's core slightly rippled, because that staff seemed to contain Wu Er's breath. This is Wu Er's staff? Yi Wu Hui sensed Sumo's state of mind. Yes, Sumo replied in her heart. Sigh. Yi Wu Hui sighed softly and did not say anything else. She could see the waves in Sumo's dancy. She understood that no one could replace Wu Er or Mu Jinghong in Sumo's heart. After choosing their magic treasures, Sumo and Zhuang Xingzi did not stay in the Red Dust Pavilion. The two of them went downstairs and returned the jade slips. After bidding farewell to Elder Qi, they headed straight for the Red Dust Sect's guest house. The two of them left the Red Dust Pavilion. Old Qi looked at their backs and gently shook his head. Then he pinched two fingers on his left hand, and a ray of green light shot out. The green light instantly disappeared. After a while, it appeared outside the cave residence that Mu Hongchun usually cultivated in. The one who received the green light was a female cultivator who stood behind Mu Hongchun in the Red Dust Palace. The female cultivator directly entered the cave. Sect Master, Murong Huang chose that plum blossom staff. Yes, got it. Mu Hongchun was sitting cross-legged in the cave residence. Her long hair was slightly spread out, and her blood-red robe was somewhat eerie. However, her expression was very calm. No one knew what she was thinking. In the guest house at the back of the mountain, Zhuang Xingzi arranged a relatively quiet courtyard for Sumo and then left. According to the time of the 6th star, it was just past noon. Su Imo sat cross-legged in the guest room alone. At this moment, The entire courtyard had been set up by Sumo. He held the plum blossom staff with both hands and lowered his head in deep thought. Actually, Wu Er's plum blossom staff had already been refined into a venerable divine weapon by Xiao Luo in the Galaxy era. However, this magic staff was not one of them. Sumo, this staff has been sealed before, Yi Wu Hui said. Yes. Sumo nodded. Of course, he felt it too. However, he had tried many ways to break the seal, but to no avail. A Lotus Knight level seal? Yi Wu Hui asked. Perhaps. Sumo sighed. However, even if it's a venerable level seal, I can't break it at the moment. Yi Wu Hui did not speak. Sumo was indeed speaking the truth. There was still a world of difference between the rebirth state and the venerable state. Miss Yi, Sumo sighed. Yi Wu Hui frowned in his sea of consciousness. That was because he did not like Sumo calling her that. The words, Miss Yi, always gave people a sense of alienation. However, at this moment, Sumo only subconsciously called him that. He seemed to be thinking about a very important question. What's wrong? Yi Wu Hui asked again. Didn't you say that everything we saw after entering the Dead Souls galaxy was very strange? Sumo smiled bitterly. Strange? Yi Wu Hui chuckled. Of course it's strange. However, aren't there many things in the various realms very strange? Isn't that so? Hee hee. Sumo nodded. However, everything we saw in the Dead Souls galaxy was especially strange. Oh? Tell me about it. With a thought, Yi Wu Hui had already flown out of Sumo's sea of consciousness. She was still the same spirit, with a faint look. However, when Yi Wu Hui came out, he could see Sumo's face. Everything we saw in the Scattered Stars zone should be fine. The Devil Moon world is a remnant, but it should be related to the Taiwan. The word Huang is definitely a trace of the Taiwan, Sumo said slowly. Sumo seemed to want to rearrange everything. Yes, Yi Wu Hui nodded. However, apart from the remnant of the word Huang and the red sand, we found nothing. Then, we left the Scattered Stars zone and entered the real Dead Souls galaxy. Sumo continued. After that, we followed the star map. At that time, the entire Dead Souls galaxy was empty. Yes. Then we saw the star explosion and the immeasurable ship, Yi Wu Hui said. We saw some of AMU's and Xinyan's past. Sumo frowned. After that, we left the immeasurable ship, Yi Wu Hui said. Yes. Sumo pondered for a moment. But before that, we were always on the ship. On the deck, I wanted to check the star map, but I couldn't, because we were in the black hole. Yes. Yi Wu Hui looked at Sumo, not quite understanding what she was trying to say. After he left the black hole, the star map in my mind flashed and marked the location of the dust net 3 stars, Sumo said. Yes. At that time, I saw it clearly too. Yi Wu Hui said. After that, we got off the immeasurable ship. Sumo frowned. Moreover, we disembarked on our own accord. Then, the immeasurable ship disappeared and the red dust fleet appeared. Hee hee. There's nothing wrong. Yi Wu Hui smiled. Sumo, what are you trying to say? This is indeed the whole process. Is there anything wrong? There's nothing wrong with the process. The corner of Sumo's mouth curved. She looked up at Yi Wu Hui and said, Miss Yi, I'm sure that Mu Hongchun is the person I'm looking for. Yes. Yi Wu Hui frowned. I know, but she doesn't know you at all. She doesn't even know your other 2 names. She thinks they are the other 2 people. She lost her memory. Yi Wu Hui's eyes lit up. She thought that she had guessed what Sumo was trying to say. Hee hee. Sumo shook her head. No, actually, there's another possibility. She doesn't know me either. Oh. Yi Wu Hui frowned slightly and said in surprise, She hasn't awakened. That's right. Sumo stood up. All the reincarnators of the 3 realms need time to awaken. But the timing of everyone's awakening is different. Actually, Mu Hongchun is Mu Jinghong's previous life. Theoretically, she should have died long ago. We wouldn't have met her in the Dead Souls star field. For the so-called Dustnet 7 stars shouldn't exist at all. Back then, you didn't know about the Dustnet 7 stars either, right? There are only 3 stars in the Dustnet border. So, all of this isn't normal. Sumo, You're saying that we... Yi Wuhui widened her eyes and looked at Sumo blankly. She could guess what Sumo wanted to say, but she couldn't believe it. Everything originated from that immeasurable ship. Sumo said slowly. Chapter 675. Space-time was truly a wonderful existence. If a cultivator could completely control any space-time, he would be truly invincible. However, the immeasurable ship was an existence that transcended space-time. The immeasurable ship. At this time, Yuhue looked at Sumo and said in a tone of disbelief, "It took us to the past of the Dead Soul Star area. It seems to be the only explanation for now." Sumo nodded. "Then what do we do now?" Yuhue said, "Go back. Go back." Sumo couldn't help but laugh. "Do you think I'm AMU? Currently, my forbidden painting technique can't be used as I please in space. I'm probably still far from it." With that, Sumo drew in the air with her hands. In an instant, the entire room flashed. Runes appeared in the air. Then, following Sumo's hand seals, they quickly combined and deduced. The entire room was filled with the light of the forbidden painting. The forbidden painting was the wonder of the universe. Yi Wuhui's family's knowledge was extensive and profound. The Three Realms ghost prodigy Bumyao Yin was definitely comparable to the Three Realms venerables, but Yi Wuhui didn't understand the forbidden painting. This was also the first time she saw Sumo deducing the forbidden painting. Of course, she didn't understand all the mysteries. She only felt that the colorful brilliance was mysterious and illusory. At that moment, Yi Wuhui was even a little dazed, because she felt that everything around her was changing. Everything in the room was becoming blurry. Sumo. Yi Wuhui was even a little worried and instinctively moved closer to Sumo. "It's fine. Soon, you'll see something interesting," Sumo said with a smile. The forbidden painting was still deducing. Sumo's hand seals changed again, and Yi Wuhui couldn't see anything in the room anymore. She could only see Sumo and the endless light of the forbidden painting. Under Yi Wuhui's feet, there were runes and streams of water. She felt that she was drifting along with the current, heading in an unknown direction. "Follow me," Sumo said. Immediately, Sumo's body moved slightly. Fortunately, his speed was not fast, and Yi Wuhui hurriedly followed. 3 steps in a row. In an instant, Yi Wuhui's last step landed, and the scenery in front of him changed drastically. The starry sky. Yi Wuhui couldn't believe it. She actually followed Sumo and floated into the starry sky. However, there seemed to be a thin water curtain between her and the starry sky. "Sumo, where are we?" Yi Wuhui turned to ask Sumo. Hee, you'll know where this is soon." Sumo laughed. Yi Wuhui was about to ask again. However, she was shocked by the scene in front of her. Not far away, 6 red dust warships headed straight for them. Around the warship, there were many escort airships. And in the center of the entire fleet was Sumo's Black Demon ship. 2 people stood on the Black Demon ship. It was Sumo and Zhening Bu. "Sumo, this is your space-time forbidden map?" Yi Wuhui finally understood. "Under your spell, we returned to the previous space-time, right?" "Yes." Sumo nodded. "Actually, I only changed the space, and then the time changed accordingly. Then can we go out? Go back to the past." Yi Wuhui used his finger to lightly poke the water curtain in front of him. Although she was a soul, the water curtain still changed according to her finger. "As long as we want, of course we can go back to the past. Once this water curtain disperses, we can go back." Sumo smiled faintly. "But there's no need for that. You continue to follow me," Sumo said, and then took 2 consecutive steps. Yi Wuhui didn't dare to be negligent and followed closely. At that moment, she seemed to be afraid that Sumo would leave her behind. After 2 steps, the scenery changed again. Not far away, another Sumo stood quietly in the void, and a few stars flew over from afar. It was the Red Dust Left patrol fleet that was rushing over. "This is the spatial node that the immeasurable ship just disappeared from?" Yi Wuhui said. "That's right." Sumo sighed. "Zhening Bu is about to appear." "Then why are you sighing?" Yi Wuhui said. Hee hee, this is already my limit. Sumo shook her head, and, at the same time, pointed at the place where the immeasurable ship disappeared through the water curtain. The immeasurable ship's existence makes it impossible for me to deduce forward. Oh, Yi Wuhui was puzzled. It can actually stop everything. That's right, Sumo said. I really don't dare to imagine how powerful the person who created the immeasurable ship was. The immeasurable ship itself is a condensation of time and space. It's an existence that I can't explain at the moment. If you don't believe me, look. With that said, Sumo pulled Yi Wuhui and took a step forward just like before. Rumble. In an instant, Yi Wuhui felt the water curtain in front of her suddenly collapse. However, she only heard a sound. Then, the interstellar space in front of her suddenly disappeared, and in its place was the guest room of the Red Dust sect. The forbidden map under her feet quickly receded like a receding tide. In an instant, it completely disappeared. This is the result of me wanting to cross the space before the immeasurable ship disappeared. Sumo smiled helplessly. Sumo, then we can't go back? Yi Wuhui asked. At least for now. Sumo nodded. We were taken to the past of the Dead Soul Star field by the immeasurable ship, and going back is beyond my ability. If AMU was here, he could definitely go back with his forbidden time. But I can't. With that, Sumo let out a long sigh. When he thought of AMU, his heart was filled with emotion. Since we're here, let's take it easy, Yi Wuhui said with a smile. Of course. Sumo calmed down and smiled. There are actually many things that we want to know about in this time and space. After all, only by understanding the past can we understand the future. In this time and space, we might have an unexpected harvest. After that, it's not too late to think of a way to go back, Yi Wuhui said, looking at Sumo. That's right. Sumo nodded. However, we still need to verify our guess. What will happen next? I have a feeling that something big is going to happen in the Red Dust 7-star world. Yi Wuhui looked at Sumo and suddenly smiled. Next, you should work hard to awaken your senior sister Mu. Her not awakening is your biggest obstacle. That's right. Sumo smiled calmly and helplessly. That is indeed a big thing. Yi Wuhui looked at Sumo and couldn't help but curl his lips. Then, his body moved, and he returned to Sumo's sea of consciousness. Red Dust Sect Leader, didn't you say that there would be a banquet to entertain you? Just wait. I'm going to sleep for a while, Yi Wuhui said lazily in the sea of consciousness. Hee hee. Okay. Sumo smiled. If there's anything, I'll wake you up. Yi Wuhui giggled and didn't speak again. So, Sumo dispersed the surrounding realm, put away the plum blossom staff, and continued to meditate on the bed. 14 hours later, it was dusk on the 6th star. Fellow cultivator Morong, the sect leader invites you to attend the banquet at Hongmen Peak. Zhuang Xingzi's voice came from outside the guest house. When Sumo heard this, she couldn't help but get up and smile. Hongmen Peak did not seem to be a good omen. Chapter 676. Honggate Peak was southwest of Hong Chen's main peak. Within Hong Chen's sect, it was second only to Hong Chen's main peak, and the color of the peak was even darker. The mountain was steep and dark red. Thus, Hong Chen's sect also called it Blood Peak. Sumo, accompanied by Zhuang Xingzi, had already landed on Honggate Peak. On the peak, there was a palace called Honggate Palace. The palace was majestic and extraordinary. Elder Zhuang, why is this peak called Honggate? Sumo asked. Oh, huh. Zhuang Xingzi laughed. The northern exit of this peak has been washed away by the rain for millions of years. Now it looks like a door, like a chasm, hence the name. Is the rain of the 6th star also red? Sumo asked. No, Zhuang Xingzi said. The rain of the 6th star is all colorless. However, because of the color of the mountain and the color of the earth, it sometimes looks red. Speaking of which, the rainy season hasn't arrived yet. If it rains, the entire Hongchun sect will have a different view. Oh, Sumo smiled playfully. because Zhuang Xingzi's tone was full of anticipation. A cultivator who had been an immortal for a lifetime actually had a kind of expectation towards the rainy season of the stars. That was indeed interesting. Rainy season? How long do we have to wait? Sumo asked. 30 years. Zhuang Xingzi answered. That's good. Not long. Sumo smiled. At that moment, she saw a trace of loneliness in Zhuang Xingzi's eyes. It seemed that everything in Hong Chun's sect wasn't completely what she wanted. The two talked as they walked, and had already arrived outside Honggate Palace. Elder Zhuang. Outside Honggate Palace, there were cultivators standing guard. They were all deity-bearing guards. Zhuang Xingzi nodded lightly, and directly led Sumo into Honggate Palace. Honggate Palace was the main place where Hong Chun's sect held important meetings, banquets, and other affairs. There were many halls in Honggate Palace. Zhuang Xingzi brought Su Mo directly to a large hall on the highest floor. Along the way, they didn't meet many cultivators. Fellow Taoist Morong, the scale of this banquet is quite high. Apart from you and me, only Elder Jian and the 4 great patrol envoys of the Red Dust sect participated. Zhuang Xingzi said, apart from Patrol Guard Jun, the others have just returned to the sect. Oh, Sumo was surprised. That wasn't because the people attending the banquet were the absolute upper echelons of the Red Dust sect. Rather, it was because the Red Dust sect ruled over 4 small worlds and was very busy. Could it be that they had gathered all the important people just to invite him to a banquet? In Sumo's heart, a puzzled feeling arose. This banquet was not simple. Could it be that Mu Hongchun was trying to harm him? Sumo, you need to be careful. Unknowingly, Yi Wu Hui had woken up and reminded him with a smile. The Red Dust sect is full of experts. Hee hee. Sumo laughed in her heart. It's fine. Even if the entire Red Dust sect were to join forces, they wouldn't be a threat to me. I want to see what kind of banquet this is. Zhuang Xingzi pushed the door, and the door to the hall slowly opened. Looking again, there was already a rather large oval table in the hall. The table seemed to be polished from a single piece of ruby, and it gave off a faint glow. There were a total of 6 cultivators sitting around the table. Naturally, the Red Dust sect master, Mu Hongchun, sat in the main seat. She was still dressed in red, and her expression was indifferent, without any sadness or joy. On her right sat an old man with a head full of white hair. The old man had white hair and a youthful face, and he looked kind and amiable. First life, immortal early stage. Sumo guessed that he was the other town star elder of the Red Dust sect, Elder Jian. There were 2 empty seats on Mu Hongchun's left, and it seemed that they were reserved for Sumo and Zhuang Xingzi. Then on the 2 sides were the 4 great patrol envoys. Apart from Zhang Bu, Sumo didn't know the other 3. However, they were all at the consummate sea destruction realm. 2 of them were middle-aged men, one slightly tall, and the other slightly thin. The other patrol envoys was actually a flower-like female cultivator. Once Sumo and Zhuang Xingzi arrived, Mu Hongchun was the first to stand up. The others from the Red Dust sect naturally stood up as well to show their welcome. Taoist Morong, it's only been a few hours. Have you rested well? Mu Hongchun cupped his hands and bowed, smiling faintly. Very good. Thank you, Sect Master Mu. Sumo returned the greeting. In the Red Dust Pavilion, I chose a staff. Thank you, Sect Master Mu. Taoist Morong, you're too polite, Mu Hongchun said. Then, Zhuang Xingzi hurriedly introduced them to Sumo. Town Star Elder Jian Shuyong, Front Patrol Envoy Wu Changsheng, Back Patrol Envoy Su Fengchun, Right Patrol Envoy Sima Yunyan, and all these people greeted Sumo one by one. Thus, everyone took their seats as the host and guest. Then, there were waiters serving wine and dishes. In an instant, the entire table was filled with many immortal-tasting spiritual dishes. Then, the attendants and maids left one by one. In a corner of the hall, only Mu Hongchun's 2 personal female cultivators stood. Besides them, there was no one else. Mu Hongchun raised his cup and smiled faintly at Sumo. Taoist Murong is an honored guest of the Red Dust sect. Today, we've prepared some wine and water in the Hongmin Palace. Firstly, to express our gratitude to Taoist Murong, and secondly, to welcome you and patrol on Voyagin. Everyone, let's have a toast. Thank you, Sect Master Mu. Sumo raised her cup and smiled. Thank you, Sect Master. The other cultivators of the Red Dust sect also raised their cups, but their expressions were somewhat reserved. From Sumo's point of view, Mu Hongchen's control over the Red Dust sect had already reached an extreme. Mu Hongchen was the absolute authority of the Red Dust sect. After the first cup was finished, everyone was relatively more relaxed. Mu Hongchen tried his best to humble himself, and the rest of the Red Dust sect also tried their best not to be reserved. Sumo was naturally the center of the banquet, and the powerhouses of the Red Dust sect took turns toasting Sumo. Sumo did not reject anyone and drank to her heart's content. Zheningbu and Sumo were relatively familiar with each other, and the two of them drank a few cups. Actually, Zheningbu had some gains from his return this time. This was because Mu Hongchen had already sent someone to give him the rotten breaking pill. However, he knew that Sumo actually had another motive for coming to the Red Dust sect, and that was to let the Red Dust sect and the Feather Puppet sect bury the hatchet. However, Zheningbu had not had the chance to tell Sumo about Mu Hongchen's attitude. After 3 rounds of wine, 5 dishes were served. Under their deliberate efforts, the atmosphere of the banquet was warm and harmonious. At this moment, Sumo waved her hand and directly took out a jar of wine from her storage bag. Tianyi Divine Brew. Jian Shiyong's eyes lit up. He was a wine lover. Huh, Sumo laughed. Elder Jian, you really know your stuff. Just now I forgot about it. Now, we haven't had our fill yet, so take it out. Thus, Sumo personally filled everyone's cup. The Tianyi Immortal Brew was the 7-star bitter dew. However, there was no change in Mu Hongchen's expression as he held onto the bowl of wine. Actually, Sumo felt a little strange. Why is it that Mu Hongchen can remember all the techniques of Tai Huang, but can't remember anything about Tai Huang and the 7 stars of bitter dew? Could it be that the awakening area was different? That was the only explanation Sumo could come up with. Tianyi Celestial Brew, this is indeed good wine. At this moment, Mu Hongchen looked at the Celestial Brew in his cup, looked around, and smiled. All the cultivators of the Red Dust sect knew Mu Hongchen's habits. That smile meant that the sect master had something important to say. Therefore, their expressions became serious. It's a pity that the 8th mainland isn't under the rule of our Hongchen sect. Mu Hongchen's lips curled into a smile once again. One had to admit that her smile was filled with a cold, seductive beauty. If the 8th mainland surrenders to us, the 8th mainland will definitely submit to us. This Tianyi Immortal Brew is exclusive to Hongchen. Mu Hongchen's words had a hidden meaning. However, no one dared to answer. Today, I summoned everyone back to the mountain because I have something else to say. Mu Hongchen's face darkened slightly, and her eyes contained endless cold light. What's the order, Sect Master? I will go through fire and water, and I will not hesitate to die. Elder Jian saw and took the lead to express his position. At this moment, he knew that he should speak. I will not hesitate to die. The others also shouted in unison. Very good. Mu Hongchen smiled faintly, and then glanced around. Her eyes paused slightly when she saw Sumo's face, and she said slowly, I want to start a war with the Yuqi sect. Wow. As soon as the sentence came out, not only Sumo, but also the faces of the other powerful figures of the Red Dust sect changed abruptly. Everything was too sudden. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.